Welcome to the Wizard of Radical Self-Respect. My name's Jared Mello, and I'm the shepherd of black sheep. We have a pretty good flock of black sheep here, and we have some good conversations throughout these breakdowns as well. Now, if you're not subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe. And before you go, if you like the video, remember to like the video as well. And today, we're going over our favorite woman, Sadia Khan. And of course, I say that in jest, but I'm also very disappointed. She is giving me more content here to go over with you all. That part's not bad, I guess. But at the same point, I'm very disappointed in this guy, Jack, for even having her on the show. This guy has over 3 million YouTube subscribers, millions on TikTok, millions on Instagram. He doesn't need to have her on. He doesn't need to. He's big enough so that it doesn't matter. This is what makes me think somehow Sadia is connected, because if anyone does any kind of due diligence on her, they would say, oh, she lies about her credentials, forged her credentials, and she's abusive to the people that disagree with her. Now, as far as her actual content goes, there are some things I agree with, and there's other things I absolutely disagree with. And she is the queen of sweeping generalizations and gaslighting. And it's completely obnoxious if you listen to her. And we're going to go over some of it in this interview here, or in this show. Mac, not late, 1 minute and 37 seconds. You're right on time. And I don't even know who Sadia Khan's fans are anymore at this point. Who even likes her? Is there some Muslim people that like her, maybe? Is it what? I don't think it's red pill people that like her. Who does? Some simpy men, perhaps? It's probably a big part of it, right? The simpy men. Simpy men are to blame for a lot of things, let's face it. And before you get upset at my usage of the word simp, my definition of the word simp is a man who disrespects himself for women. And when you put it through that lens, yeah, there's a lot of these guys doing that. But Sadia Khan takes full advantage of it, right? Because she's a attractive woman, and so she knows to position herself in a way to appear like the expert. So all sorts of guys come to her for advice on dating, sex, love, etc. It gives me an eye roll. Ellie, how are you? Michelle, how are you? And that's why, Kat, because you're absolutely correct, she is absolutely awful for survivors of abuse. And this is how you know she's not a psychologist. She just flies off the handle with these sweeping generalizations that no other licensed professional would even dream of saying. And she speaks it so confidently that if you didn't know any better, you would think she was just correct. And to be fair, Dr. Anna from the other day, she's way more on the right track than Sadia Khan. But even so, Dr. Anna has a few things I disagree with her on as well. But at the very least, she's a real doctor. Sadia Khan just pretends to be a psychologist when she's not. I mean, that should disqualify her right there. What kind of creators, interviewers like me, are going to have her on the show after knowing that? If you watch the Abba and Preach breakdown of her, and then you still say to yourself, yes, Sadia Khan would be a great guest for my show, I'd actually have to question what your motives are at that point. You're putting profit over principles at that point. And it's just unacceptable. So any creator that continues to have her on their show, they are enabling her nonsense to continue, especially now that all the information is out here. They are simply enabling. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's no excuse for that. So Jack Neel here, he deserves to be called out as well. He should know better than to be doing this, especially after it's all come to light. Now, Nick Cannon, I kind of gave him a pass only because he's a narcissist. He's a narcissist also, and I was able to label it as, oh, well, I don't expect much better from another narcissist, so that makes sense to me that they would be there like that. Yes, so Michelle, we should do a meet and greet here. So Sable Blonde is Kat. Wingsley is Ellie. Who else? Jolly is Jolly, but Jolly's real name is something else. It's not Jolly. I always forget her real name, but we still call her Jolly anyway. And then there was Bears and Old Bears, and it can be hard to keep up because a lot of people do change their usernames on me, and it can be difficult to know. But all right, let's hop right into the Sadia fest here. And this might drive you insane, actually. So no, don't worry. I will stop it whenever I hear something ridiculous. And there's going to be no shortage of things ridiculous. Let's put it like that.
Today's guest is an expert on the psychology of toxic love.
Respecting traditional masculinity while rejecting traditional femininity. That's the core of toxic femininity, because it's actually narcissism disguised as...
A psychotherapist and relationship coach, she spent her career decoding why modern dating is broken and people keep falling for those who hurt them.
The world will want you to think that men hate women and women hate men, because that's how the devil is designed. It's the use of that's caused this rift between men and women.
In an age where social media and AI are influencing our relationships, she's helped millions online navigate what genuine connection actually feels like. How is ChatGPT affecting modern relationships?
It's offering unconditional support to people who don't deserve it.
In this episode, we'll dive into why we confuse manipulation with affection, unveil the childhood traumas that shape our behaviors, and explore the mindset that lets you achieve true love without pain.
And speaking of his intro here, maybe I should start doing some fancy intros, and maybe I need to hire some sort of team like he has to make these fancy intros for me. And then maybe YouTube would start ranking my content better and I'd get more views perhaps. What do you think, chat? Should I do that?
Sadia Khan, welcome to the Jack Neel podcast.
Thank you, Jack Neel, for having me. Thank you for such a wonderful introduction.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you here. Sadia, in a world of relationships being ruined with algorithms, dating apps, AI, do you think love is enough anymore in 2025?
Unfortunately not. Love is one of few emotions that we know is going to wax and wane. It's going to go up.
And you know what? I listened to the first 10 minutes of this. It's kind of boring. So we'll skip until like the 8-minute mark to start.
Is then start reacting to her with the equal amount of emotion. So let her have a little tantrum. I'm not saying let her be disrespectful, but let her be like, oh my God, da, 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 da. And instead of be like, well, you shouldn't have done that. Matching her emotional energy will only lead to chaos in a relationship. Whereas when a woman is venting, is being emotional, is being a bit erratic, you remaining calm in that moment, allowing her to finish and then say, okay, how do we solve this? Then go into that mode. That's how you maintain leadership as a man.
And that's actually a good suggestion. Remain emotionally calm. And then, hey, how can we solve this here? Instead of going off the handle and having an emotional outburst. She's correct about this. Again, I can have enough humility to admit when she's right about things. But for everything she's right about, she also says something completely off the wall too. And that's what makes it tricky when they mix in things that are correct with things that are just absolutely absurd and invalidating, as you're about to hear.
Men get it wrong is like, let's say she's in a bad mood and he's like, why are you in a bad mood? No, I'm in a bad mood. And it just turns into two kids fighting. But the moment you remain emotionally controlled while she's having a bit of a tantrum, she will naturally start to feel silly for doing it. She'll naturally be like, why am I overreacting? He's staying so calm. And it just regulates the relationship. As a man, if you can just remain emotionally controlled in her moments and then solve the problem, and if she's still disrespectful, no problem, you withdraw. But matching her emotional venting and her reactions, unfortunately, it would just lead to chaos in the relationship.
I think that's great advice. Sadia, why do we fall in love with people who hurt us the most?
It's not that we fall in love with people that hurt us the most. We fall in love with people who remind us the most of what we're used to feeling. And if, for example, you grew up in an environment where you're used to feeling unseen or used to feeling abused or used to feeling abandoned, what will happen is you consider that as a form of love. So I always tell men.
And this is another tricky one. She's correct about this, right? If what you're used to is narcissists and abusive people, that is what they are conditioning you to associate with love. That is your initial trauma bond. So she's absolutely correct about this part too. Another part that makes it tricky.
Your competition is never other men. It's always a woman's childhood. And what I mean by that is you might be the richest, nicest, kindest man she's ever met. But if she's used to abandonment, she's used to addictions from her family, or she's used to somebody being abusive, what will happen is she'll replace you with somebody who feels totally familiar to her rather than the person who's actually good for her.
And again, that's a good distinction, right? A lot of people confuse what is familiar with what is safe. And that's why I always say, if home wasn't a safe place for you, you have to be very careful with people who feel like home. That's the reason. Now, this is true until you've done the work on yourself. When you've done the work and you get awareness of this pattern and you realize, wow, my parents were narcissists. My parents were abusive. My parents were fill in the blank with whatever they were. And then you do the work to heal. And then you associate true safety with safety, as opposed to what just feels familiar because what you are used to. And the other thing I've heard people say about this is, well, they try to go for the opposite of their parents, right? Oh, my parent was this, so I went for the opposite. But the sneaky part with that is just because outwardly they appear to be the opposite, they can also still be narcissists. Why do we know this? Because there's a difference between grandiose and covert narcissists. I've seen so many people say, I was with a grandiose first, so I wanted to get with the opposite. And so I got with someone that wasn't as boisterous. And it turns out that other person was just a covert narcissist. So they thought they were going to the opposite, but they really weren't. And the lesson here is just because the presentation is different doesn't mean the base traits aren't the same. They can still be the same regardless of the presentation.
If she hasn't done the inner work. And even when they've done the inner work, it can still niggle at them. Sometimes the smoothness of a good, healthy man can feel so unfamiliar that they need the sabotaging moments in order to feel alive. When it's too smooth and it's too calm, she can almost feel bored. She can almost feel like there's no emotional reaction. So am I actually in love? My last guy used to scratch his car when things would go wrong. I would want to slash his tires. This guy, I don't feel any of those. Do I even love him? So it's not so much that they fall in love with people who hurt them. They only fall in with people who remind them of what love looked like as a child. And if you match that in with the same level of hurt that they experienced as a child, they will attach to you. But if somebody came from quite an idyllic childhood and you try and abuse them or you hurt them, whatever, what will happen is they won't be able to gel with you for long. They won't be able to attach for so long. So one of the things that I always argue against when people say, oh, this person's such a narcissist, such an abuser, so narcissist. What we really...
And look at that. They put the definition on the bottom there. But let's see what Sadia Khan says about it.
Should be doing is something was wrong in my self-esteem at the moment I chose them, because how did we connect? How did we last? How did I fall in love? How did they have this power over me?
And again, and this is where she begins to show she just has no idea about these dynamics. If someone's love bombing, they can appear like a pretty awesome person in the beginning. They can wear that mask, and it's not until later that the mask begins to slip. Now, once you understand narcissism, you could be on the lookout for love bombing. Absolutely. And there's ways that we can empower ourselves as well. For example, if we're happy and single, we're much less likely to fall for love bombing. If we're unhappy in our lives and we really feel lonely, now we're also susceptible to love bombing a little bit. So it's important to have a full life outside of a romantic relationship. These are things that we can do to empower ourselves at the same time.
So instead of using that term, we need to reflect on what wounds we had that they were obviously attaching to.
Yeah, I think it's very common.
And again, she called them wounds the narcissist is attracting to, or attaching to sometimes. I think anyone can be fooled by a narcissist, whether they have issues or not. Not everyone has issues just because they got with a narcissist. That being said, those other things I said can also be true. Maybe someone is a little bit of a people pleaser. Maybe they don't have weak boundaries. Or, as I would say, they didn't practice radical self-respect. But I think it's a mistake to say just because you are with a narcissist means there's definitely something wrong with you. Not always. Definitely not always.
In 2025, at least, that women kind of have this sentiment that men are manipulative narcissists, and on the opposite end, it's men say women are emotional and bipolar.
Mm-hmm.
You might have answered this, but why is every man a narcissist in 2025?
I think because
Why is every man a narcissist in 2025? First of all, they are not. So that's a loaded question. But let's see what Sadia says.
every woman has overindulged in content that frees her of accountability. And I'm not just saying it's just women, sometimes it's everybody in the self-help world. Sometimes what happens a lot in the self-help world is, particularly American therapy, it's designed to cushion you, it's designed to make you feel better. That's how therapy is measured in American kind of culture.
A massive generalization. Sometimes that can be the case. If anything, I think the issue America has is that it can be too tilted towards big pharma. I think that's more of an issue. And then for insurance purposes, they might be pushed to diagnose because insurance won't cover people unless they have a diagnosis. To me, those are the issues much more so than what she's saying right here.
Is your therapist is there to make you feel better. And how do people make you feel better? Well, they remind you that everybody else is wrong. They remind you that you should be unconditionally loved. It reminds you that you should have so much compassion for yourself. You should forgive yourself. Everything is about making yourself feel better.
And that's a straw man of what therapists are even doing. Is it only about telling you that you need unconditional love, everyone else is wrong, and just trying to make you feel good? No, that's not what it is. Any good therapist will not be just that. But in the beginning, I think you will build rapport with your clients. You want to build that trust so they're comfortable enough to open up to you. And that requires you to have emotional safety. You got to build an environment where the other person feels safe opening up to you. And to do that, you might be supportive, you might be encouraging. Of course, you're going to be non judgmental, right? But is that just focusing on making the person feel good? Nah, that's a straw man way to frame it, if you ask me.
But my advice would always be that in order to truly recover from whether it's men that have hurt you, whether it's women that have hurt you, anyone, is to take complete and utter accountability. Whatever rough circumstance you find yourself in, chances are there was a bad decision that led you there, your own bad decisions. And once you start doing an inventory of all your bad decisions, you actually take complete control because you realize that if I didn't go to that club that time and meet somebody in the club, or if I didn't lend him money the first time he asked, or if I didn't just forgive every time he would never call me or never text back, or if I didn't make those decisions, chances are I wouldn't be in this situation today.
And what she's doing here, she's skipping steps of the process. I do agree. We should take a look at our side of the street in step 2 of healing. The first step, if you were in an abusive relationship, is to first understand what happened to you. Because if you're in a trauma bond, you've been convinced you're wrong about everything. You no longer trust yourself or your perception of reality. And it's a nightmare. So the first step is understanding what you actually went through. And then you can put a name to it if you want. But I think it's most important to understand the behaviors and understand you were in a trauma bond. Then down the line, take a look at your side of the street. Ask yourself, what could I have done differently to prevent this situation? That's where I came up with radical self-respect. Don't confuse that with blame. Don't confuse that with blame. It's just a way to empower ourselves. But what she's doing here is she's skipping straight to step 2. And that can feel pretty invalidating and dismissive, especially for people that are still in an abusive relationship or just got out of one. What you say to people and when you say it to them absolutely matters. And she just kind of misses that part.
So I think there's such a market for, therapists who say, oh, this is a narcissist and how to know you've been abused, or how to know, instead of thinking how to know you've been abused, why don't you change it to how do you avoid becoming somebody who attaches to abusers? How do you avoid ending up in these circumstances? If we switch the narrative and change therapy from a cushioning experience to a tough love, like this is what you need to do to improve, chances are we won't be labeling everybody that hurt us. Instead, we'll be doing an assessment of our own behavior that led them.
Right. And that's the thing to do in step 2 of healing. Right? We ask ourselves, what could we have done differently? How can we prevent this from happening again in the future? What kind of decisions led me to this? And chances are there is going to be something, right? There's going to be a decision you could make differently or something you can do better. That doesn't mean it was your fault, but that's just how we empower ourselves. But again, what she's doing here to me is she skipped skip step 1 straight to step 2.
So I think the over-reliance on therapy, it's got amazing qualities. It's led to really great outcomes. But a lot of the time, the people who claim to be the most healed tend to be the most victims, because they think going to therapy where the therapist told them their ex is a narcissist means that they've healed. When really we need to realize, why did you want to attach to this human being?
And again, that's another straw man of what's going on. She says someone figures out they're with a narcissist, or the therapist tells them that, and they think, oh, I'm healed. And she says the people that think they're healed are really just the biggest victims. What? I mean, that's a wild thing to say. Because again, every situation needs to be taken individually. You can't just say that across the board. Can there be cases where that might be true? Sure. But to sweepingly say it like this? No.
To kind of differentiate, in your opinion, like, how would you define like what a narcissist actually is? And is it that common, their definition?
I would say the only time you know you're dealing with a narcissist is when you think you're not with one.
Oh, I can't even believe she said that. And maybe I should rewind it so you can hear it again.
The only time you know you're dealing with a narcissist is when you think you're not with one.
The only time you're dealing with a narcissist is when you think you're not with one. Make that make sense to me, Sadia Khan. And I know what she's going to say. And part of the explanation is true, but she's completely neglecting the fact that once you're aware, you'll be able to know what you were dealing with. She thinks only someone who doesn't know is with a narcissist. And that can be true when you're in the trauma bond and completely subscribed to their distorted version of reality. But once you're out, you can correctly say what you went through. And again, to me, it's not about labeling them a narcissist as much as understanding those behaviors. But she thinks if you called them a narcissist, it means you definitely weren't with a narcissist. And that's just an outrageous thing to say.
And never been with one. And what I mean by this is I will meet people who have clearly had narcissistic parents, narcissistic partners. They will never, ever, ever, even when they break up, say he was a narcissist, she was a narcissist, my mom was a narcissist. Instead, they'll say, I don't know how to get, like, this person was right, I'm wrong. When you're dealing with a narcissist, they brainwash you in a way to make you believe that you are totally and utterly wrong.
And yes, that's what happens when you're in the trauma bond. And she's only talking about people that are still in the trauma bond and subscribed to that narcissist distorted version of reality. But once you break the trauma bond and you heal the traumatic cognitive dissonance, you can say what you went through and you can be correct that you were with a narcissist. So her framing of this is out of control. It's gaslighting, invalidating. It's ridiculous.
Everything you do is your fault. You're the problem. So they don't have this epiphany and wake up and realize I'm dealing with a narcissist. They don't have this, oh my God, he was breadcrumbing me. There's an inability to recognize the abuse because the abuse has become so engulfing. That's all they know. So anytime you say this person's narcissist, that person's narcissist, this person, chances are they weren't. Because if they were a true skilled narcissist, you would be brainwashed into thinking they are as amazing as they think they are. You would be thinking they were the best thing that ever happened to me. I fucked up. I was the loser in the relationship. I was the problem. So I think the moment you use that term, you've obviously not been with one. When you truly,
like, what kind of psychologist would say this? And she's not a psychologist, right? She's just a relationship coach. But she speaks with such authority that people who don't know any better, they would probably believe her. But what she's saying is completely unhinged. It's like what she's talking about is someone who is in the trauma bond and who is unaware of their situation. And when that's the case, yes, you are going to think that you're guilty for everything, that you're always wrong. But it's because you're in the trauma bond. She's not taking into account people that break the trauma bond and understand what they went through. It's really such a silly thing for her to be saying, because she's not making the distinction. She's not making the distinction at all.
with an abuser, you genuinely believe they were the greatest thing, you were the problem, and you will be fighting to get their approval. Never have the courage to even judge them and call them a narcissist. It would just never happen.
That's
See, how could you even say that? Like if you're in it and you're so far in it that you just have no idea, maybe. But online now, people can understand what they went through. There's all sorts of resources and education about trauma bonds, narcissists, coercive control, domestic violence. And she's saying, nope, if you called your ex a narcissist, it means they just weren't one. Sorry, I know your situation better than you do. What kinds of people say that? Narcissistic people say that. People that tell you what you should be thinking and feeling. People that say they know your own experience better than you. Very invalidating at the least.
really interesting take.
Yeah.
I guess any woman who doesn't have anything bad to say about their ex might
Mhm.
have been with a narcissist.
Probably. The ones that have been with a man that they've spent years, and I've met women in this position and men, but particularly women. I've met women in this position, even with their own mothers. They have spent their life defending their partner. They have lost all their friends and family defending their partner. They've lost money defending their partner. That partner leaves them. They spend the next couple of years trying to get them back. That's what being with a narcissist looks like.
It looks like that if you're just completely in the trauma bond and you're not aware of anything. If you're still completely subscribed to their distorted version of reality and you have no awareness of the situation, that's what it looks like. But that's the only time it looks like that, right? If you have awareness, it no longer looks like that anymore.
Person cheats, leaves, abuses, blah, blah, they spend the rest of their life still sending money, still attaching to them, still never talking negatively about them, still having a shrine to them in their own home and in their own heart. And that's a true definition of somebody who's been with a narcissist. But if you break up and then all of a sudden you're posting memes and all of a sudden you've got a degree in narcissism and all of a sudden you're a life coach helping people, trauma victims of narcissists, you've never been with one. Or not a good one anyway, because you've obviously woken up at some stage. So
just another ridiculous thing to say. I've already said it.
Those are the people, and I've seen it even with their own parents. They'll go their whole life not talking to their father, not talking to this person because their mom told them not to, and their narcissistic parent has got a spell over them. They literally can't wake up from it. So I would say true narcissists, you don't recover that quickly or easily.
So as a therapist,
and that's the only part she said there that's true. If you were really with a narcissist, it does probably take a while to recover. That part's true. The rest of it is just a sweeping generalization.
can you tell if someone's a narcissist by how they speak? Or is there a certain tone in their voice? Are there certain words that they use?
I would say no. I would say that you can tell somebody's a narcissist over the level of influence and control they have over the people around them. And what I mean by that is they will have a husband that spent 10 years in therapy trying to please them while they don't go to a single session. They will have a child that will never speak to their family, their own grandparents or their father because she told him not to. There will be a woman that will stop talking to her own sisters and mother, everything because he says, I don't want you to anymore. It's the level of influence that you have over the people around you and how negative that influence actually is for the person themselves, but how good it is for you. So I might say to my child, for example, you can't speak to your father. I don't want you speaking to her. I don't want you speaking to your new stepmom, blah, blah. Even though that's super unhealthy for a child, they will just listen. And I will make them make decisions that are terrible for their own well-being, but great for my ego. So that's not through these words. And I know a lot of therapists have done a whole channel. So it's like, oh, well, if he drives too fast, then he's a narcissist. Or if he does this, or he's a narcissist. And it's made these women, all these vigilant women, like, oh my God, did you see the way he opened like his can of Coke? He's a narcissist. Pathetic is the only word I would use. The real...
Because remember, Sadia Khan has called victims pathetic, that's for sure. And she said that she would rather be a narcissist than a pathetic victim. And I know what she's talking about here. There are some videos. And here's the thing. There are some people in the space that do overgeneralize and say, oh, narcissists will do this, narcissists will do that. And again, sometimes it doesn't have as much to do with narcissism as just someone who's a jerk. And that's kind of what she's saying here. But in terms of narcissists, they will be all about control. And that's the other part she's mentioning here. And they'll do things for their own ego versus what's best for the people around them. That's true. That will happen. But let's see what else she says.
thing is look at the people around them. Do they live a life that is based on being obedient to this narcissist and trying to seek their approval? Or do the people around them thrive and do better and better and become autonomous individuals who have their own brain, have their own thoughts, and thrive in their lives? If they've got thriving people around them, impossible to be a narcissist. But if they've got people clutched like in the palm of their hands, chances are they're a narcissist.
And again, that's also another generalization. Most people will not be thriving if they're surrounded by a narcissist. Most. But is it impossible to be thriving in certain areas? I don't know if it's impossible. So that part of it, narcissists will impact the people around them negatively for the very most part. But at the same point, does that mean that those people around them will never be doing good ever? I mean, that's a generalization if you ask me.
And there's very few people who can do that. Yeah, but by my definition, that's how I've learned, is a narcissist. And even if that person is sitting there bragging about themselves, because I'll see some I work with very successful men. They like bragging about their achievements. They'll talk about it and people are like, oh, he's a narcissist. No, he's just successful. Some of the byproducts of being super successful is you want to tell people about it. That's not narcissist.
Sometimes.
That might just be a bit arrogant. It might be a bit bragging. They might be, a little bit stuck up, but it doesn't make you a narcissist. What it really is how are the people close to you achieving that closeness? Do you only let them close to you when they obey you, submit to you, and follow your instructions? Or do you allow them to be close to you, but still be autonomous human beings? That's how I decide someone's a narcissist.
So the last part there I can agree with, because narcissists will not want people to be autonomous, especially if they're a narcissistic parent. They're going to prevent you from developing your autonomy. Your autonomy is a threat to their power and control. Now, in terms of someone bragging, is everyone who brags a narcissist? No. But do many narcissists brag? Absolutely. Absolutely. More than one thing can be true at the same time.
That's the Sadia Khan method. I don't know if that's the DSM-IV, but that's how I do it.
Yeah, I really like that philosophy. I want to skip around here because I think of, I was playing with ChatGPT last night, and I have been thinking recently about how ChatGPT and AI are influencing our relationships.
And that's the thing, chat. She just says so many outlandish things, it's hard to keep up with. Sweeping generalization, and it takes a bit to kind of sift through her nonsense, because there's some things that might not be completely wrong, followed by things that are just outrageous. It's wild.
And I noticed that if you said, I'm in a relationship with a narcissist who's manipulative, should I leave? Versus I'm in a relationship with someone who's emotional and bipolar, should I leave? Like the narcissist, they would always tell you to leave. And then the other one, they would be like, you should offer them help, or maybe you should leave, maybe you shouldn't. But so like a real narcissist is a situation that you should leave, but it's very uncommon in your experience.
Yeah, very uncommon, because it's just people's traits, whether they're negative, positive, doesn't mean it's a disorder. It's a trait. And the funniest thing that I find is it's always the people who are the most narcissistic that are making these accusations. I'll have endless people, saying self-help guru, I help people recover from narcissistic abuse. And they're so abusive to the people around them. They don't talk to their parents. You said what?
And so listen to what she just did there. Darvo, deny, accuse, reverse victim and offender. If you talk about narcissists, you're the one that's more likely to be a narcissist. If you've cut off your parents, that means you're abusive. Like, it's just so much that's just out of control here that it's hard to pin it down. Because no, just because you cut off your parents does not mean you're abusive. Just because you're creating content doesn't mean you're more narcissistic than anyone else. It's just sweeping generalization after sweeping generalization.
The victims will do of narcissism is anyone who upsets them has to have a diagnosis and has to be discarded. They do it the most. The ones that think, oh, he's a narcissist, they discard everybody in their life. They're like, oh, she's got narcissism, she's got narcissism, I discard them. I cut everybody else. What they do with that term is remove a need for conflict resolution. The truth is, whether your parent is a narcissist, whether your children are narcissists, whether your uncle is a narcissist, what the zeitgeist at the moment is, if somebody's a nice guy, they discard them, humiliate them, do all of this, treat them like shit. But how you have good mental health is the ability to have conflict resolution with people that you don't see eye to eye with, and the ability to have relationships with people who are problematic if they're in your close circle. You're going to have problematic children. You're going to have problematic parents. Our mental health.
And this is why him having her on is problematic, because she's throwing shit up against the wall here. And she's saying things that can really be harmful to people. And this guy, he either doesn't know enough to push back, or he just wants to give her the platform and he's not going to push back, even if he knows better. But I wouldn't be able to do that. I would think, no, like, I got to push back against some of this stuff, because she's saying, oh, you got to measure your relationships by how good you can be with people that can be difficult. And it's like, sometimes, and people are using the word narcissist as an excuse to cut people off. Not usually. I mean, sometimes people are very correctly cutting people off because they're abusive and disrespecting them. And she's kind of making it seem like, oh, well, you shouldn't be doing that, and you should be really trying to work with them more. No, not always. Definitely not always.
Is going to be determined by our ability to have connections with people who are difficult, because that shows flexibility. But if every time somebody is difficult, discard, you're going to be, firstly, incredibly lonely. Secondly, you're going to lose those skills that humans need in order to form connections.
And again, she's exaggerating what happens. Is that really what people are doing? The second someone is difficult, discard. No, I don't think. What is she talking about? She's invented a straw man of what's going on, and she's tearing down that straw man. Now, the point I'll give her is this. There can be an element where maybe someone is learning boundaries, and maybe they do go too far at first, and they do go quick on the ban hammer, for example. But that's part of the growing process, right? We learn to have the balance with it, where if we were a doormat, maybe we're a little overly assertive at first, but then we find a balance with it. Right. And there comes a point where also it depends what kind of difficult person they are. If they're truly disrespectful and they're taking from you and they're abusive, there's no need to try to work much with them. Why would you even want to at that point? But if it's someone that, just maybe is someone that's not a narcissist or not abusive, you're just maybe lacking compatibility, and it's a work relationship maybe, okay, you can try to find a way to work together with that person because you have to. But if it was a choice, you probably wouldn't spend too much time around them, right? So it's like, what situations is she even talking about where she'd want somebody to put up with someone who's difficult? Now, I would say in family, maybe the leash should be a little bit longer in family. But again, if someone's abusive, if someone's disrespectful, I wouldn't tell someone to really put up with that for too long, even if they were family at that case. But again, who does she think she is to be telling other people what their boundaries should be? It's up to everyone to decide for themselves how they want to handle these situations. And she's acting like she's the arbiter of the right way to do things with it. It's like, hey, you don't know each person's situation. Everyone should decide for themselves what they think is best for themselves in the situation. Now, again, conflict resolution is also a thing. That's an important skill for us to have, right? And we don't want to completely lose our conflict resolution muscle or our collaboration muscle. That's also true. But the way she's saying it is just, this kind of lacks nuance.
You think people live in societies and cultures where nobody's offended anybody or nobody's hurt anybody else's feelings? This mentality of it, the moment somebody hurts you, you discard them for the rest of your life, is immature, lonely, and individualistic. It's not how societies are formed. Your children are going to hurt you. Your own children are going to hurt you. I hurt my parents all the time sometimes. Your parents hurt you. Now, of course, if there's abuse and sexual abuse or something like that, unfortunately, you can't repair those. And
then she talks out of both sides of her mouth here. So what you should be doing, Sadia, is defining what you mean by difficult. What's difficult? What does that look like? Because if you're not talking about abuse or SA, what's the kind of situation you're talking about? So if you're going to speak this way, you should at least be more specific about it.
Outside of those kind of things, most conflict is repairable. And one thing I see a lot in therapy, particularly amongst Americans, is that a simple feedback conflict between parents, they'll say, cut your mum off. Your dad's a narcissist, cut him off. Never speak to your dad again. And I'm like,
who does this? What therapists are instantly telling people to cut people off? If anything, if that Oprah show proved anything, therapists are hesitant to tell people what to do. They try to leave it up to the person, right? They might even go too far with that kind of thinking where they let people kind of have to like make decision themselves, but they stay stuck in the situation for longer. But she's acting like therapists are going to tell people, oh, your dad's a narcissist, cut them off. No, that's just an exaggeration. It's not really what's going on. It's another straw man of what's going on.
You can't build a healthy self-esteem when you're cutting off the people who birthed you, unless it's for really drastic reasons. But it'll be simple things like, oh, but he used to always make me do homework, or she used to always tell me that I need to lose weight, blah, blah. We're going to get negative feedback in life. Your ability to take it is what's going to make you have high self-esteem, not avoid the people who are going to give it. American therapy is avoid anyone that gives you criticism, when really you have to learn the ability to take negative feedback in order to develop your self-esteem.
Does anyone you know that goes to therapy, do they tell you avoid anyone that gives you criticism? Has anyone's therapist ever said that to them? I don't think so. She's just making this stuff up as she goes. It's like she heard one person say something similar to this, and she thinks, oh, all American therapists are telling people to cut off their parents and to avoid criticism, and their only goal is to make their client feel good. It's like, what? What? I mean, this one gives me a headache, all this, because I think she's not even as careful as she normally is because she knows this guy isn't going to push back.
Not avoid it altogether.
As a therapist, how many men would you say you've worked with, roughly?
Over 2,000.
2,000?
Mm-hmm.
So after years of working with over 2,000 men, what's the darkest, most toxic story you've heard as a therapist?
I think the darkest things I'm seeing is not necessarily a story, but what I'm seeing is the influence of pornography on young men and men in general. And the darkest kind of pathway I see is that from a young age or from an early age, they're exposed to this kind of Satan in their hands. Then what ends up happening is that they slowly get dependent on it. And then what ends up happening is it affects their erections. Now, the moment as a man you have disabled your ability to sexually perform, you've disabled every part of him. And that is all of his confidence decreases, all of his dominance decreases, all of his challenge to get a woman decreases, because ultimately they'll be thinking, if I do access her, she's going to be disappointed in my performance. That unconscious thought going in the man's mind is dangerous. It's a super dangerous thought for a man when he starts to believe his sexual performance is compromised, because then what ends up happening is he'll either avoid women altogether and just stay away from them and stay even more connected to his phone and AI, or what he'll do is get more perverse in his desires in order to get his erection back. So it will get darker and darker and darker. So that tunnel that pornography leads men down is the most dangerous experience men can have growing up.
And again, I don't disagree with this part. I do think porn is pretty bad for men, and it can put people into a bad headspace. They might get into comparisons, and it kind of depletes their power, I would say. And I think that part's true. And I do think people can become more perverse because they're looking for the next little hit, and regular things, basic porn, doesn't do it for them over time. So you have to look for things a little more extreme, a little more extreme. Yeah, I think that absolutely can happen.
Clearly, as their brain is forming. And unfortunately, it's really hard to undo the damage. So that's the pathway that I think is the most dangerous for men.
Quick question. Are you still watching this podcast? Because there was a part in the intro, the first minute, that hasn't been talked about yet. See, my team puts a lot of work into the beginning of our videos. Some story that like of a toxic relationship, or maybe like a common toxic experience that men are finding themselves in, maybe that women are finding themselves in?
Here's what the main problem I'm seeing, and the biggest shock I had when I became a therapist, is I always thought that if you treat women nicely and you're good to women and you're a nice, successful man, life is easy. You're going to get women submitting to you. Women are going to marry you. They're going to have children with you. They're going to do all of those great things. And life is super easy. Unfortunately, it's the opposite, because what's happened is for a lot of men, they're being told that they should give women unconditional love. They should be super, super helpful with women, do everything for them. They should be kind, endearing. They should do all of these nice things. Unfortunately, what they're really being told is you need to become obedient to women. The moment a man becomes obedient to women, he removes all of his sex appeal. Zero gets left in him. So what ends up happening is these men who have followed the rule book to a T, giving her unconditional love, never challenging her, always being supportive, never showing any control, never telling her what she can't post, never telling her what she can't wear, having zero opinion on her behavior. What they think is happening is they're creating unconditional love. What's really happening is they're becoming submissive and obedient.
And again, I think she has a point with this too, actually. I think an obedient person, nobody wants, I don't think any women want an obedient person. And kind of what she's describing here is the lack of positive masculine containment, as Teal Swan would say. So what she's describing is someone who is not giving any positive masculine containment. And she'd be correct. Women don't want that.
And in the process of becoming submissive and obedient, you lose sex appeal. So that man is the most likely to get cheated on, because in his desperate attempt to be the nice, perfect man, he's lost his challenge and dominance. And therefore women will seek it from somebody else, because dominance is far more important in a man than obedience. They're actually secretly craving that. So I think that's the storyline I see in a...
And this is what Sadia wants herself as well. Of course, she is telling on herself and projecting what she wants and saying, this is what every woman wants. I will say women do want positive masculine containment. Is it the way she said it?
A lot of men in this day and age that go to therapy. There's lots of men that don't do that, but they don't usually go to therapy. Lots of terrible men who do the opposite. But the men that come to therapy, that's the route that they've usually found themselves in.
That makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
As a therapist, how is ChatGPT affecting modern relationships?
Well, firstly, it's taking away a lot of jobs for qualified, trained therapists. So, I mean, it's doing that. But
which Sadia Khan is not, of course. Sadia Khan is not a trained therapist. Let's not forget that. And again, I'm not a trained therapist either, for that matter. So don't make the mistake of thinking I'm doing an appeal to authority like Dr. Anna would. The only thing I don't like about her is the lies about her credentials and the forging of her credentials, and the fact that I just disagree with so much of what she says. That's my problem with Sadia Khan. It's not that she doesn't have credentials. It's just that she lies about them. That's more of the problem I have about that.
Here's the thing. It's great to have a little bit of support and advice. I completely understand that. But the main thing that it's doing is it's offering unconditional support to people who don't deserve it. And what I mean by this is human beings are your best feedback thermometer ever. What I mean by this is if people are avoiding you, if you don't have many friends, if people are telling you the same message again and again, listen to that. Instead, what's happening is people are not having friends. They don't like the feedback they're getting. People are being mean to them. And they're going to ChatGPT and saying, what's going wrong? And ChatGPT is like, you've done nothing wrong. They're the narcissist. They're this, they're that, blah, blah. Your life will totally change when you start realizing there is wisdom in feedback. Instead of avoiding negative feedback and being so afraid of criticism, not listening, there is wisdom in people's feedback to you.
And the problem for Sadia is she's not taking anyone's feedback herself. If she did, you'd think she'd be having a little more humility here and being like, you know what? Maybe I want to clear the air and admit that I lied about my credentials and forged them, instead of going on Jack Neel's show, who has over 3 million YouTube subscribers. And I'm going to pawn myself off as some sort of expert. And let's face it, she's acting like an expert in psychology here too. Speaking what? Like, not really. Not like, what are you talking about, Sadia Khan?
There's wisdom to that. So when you are interacting with people, whatever feedback you get, try and listen to it. What ChatGPT will do is teach you to avoid human feedback and get comfort in this 2-minute high that you're going to get by getting ChatGPT to be on your side. But you lose the skills you need to maintain real world connections because it's not giving you real world feedback. So your friend might say to you, "Oh God, you were really miserable at the party yesterday. Why were you in such a bad mood? You know, people are going to think that you're arrogant." That's actually, you need to learn that and be like, "Oh shit, I didn't realize I was doing that." But what ChatGPT will say is a supportive friend would never talk to you like that. A supportive friend would be accepting of your behaviors wherever you go, whenever you go, and would want to see you comfortable.
And again, she's mixing some things that are true and not true here. ChatGPT can be overly validating at times, and it all depends what you input into it. Mostly, it will validate, but will it go out of the way to say, "Oh, you should never be hanging out with people like this or like that"? I don't know if it'll go that far, but you do have to be careful. As I've mentioned before, narcissistic people will almost certainly use ChatGPT as a flying monkey or an enabler to triangulate. Something to watch out for sure. Dr. Carey and we talked about this in our interview. But again, she's being black and white with this and making more generalizations. She's the queen of generalizations.
That's not the right way to improve your nature. Human feedback is the most important one.
Do you think that this is more of an issue for women or men using ChatGPT?
I think it's an issue for insecure. Whether they come in a female form or a male form, insecure people run away from human beings because human beings give them feedback on their level of success, attractiveness, entertainment. They give you real world feedback. Insecure people avoid feedback like the plague.
And don't get it twisted out there, folks. Sadia Khan has blocked yours truly. So apparently she didn't like my feedback. Sadia, did you like my feedback? I guess not. So she's not open to feedback. Remember that.
Secure people like to be around humans. They like to know what the feedback is. And I always go, and I actually tell people, I don't believe there's any such thing as a true introvert. Introversion is just code for I don't like me, so I don't want other people to know me. Whereas if you truly like yourself,
Oh, I can't even believe she said that either. She said being an introvert is code for I don't like myself. Chat, what do you think about that? I can't tolerate that. I consider myself an outgoing introvert. But what I mean by that is if I'm around people for a long time, especially in person, it can deplete my social battery. And after a while, I need to be alone to recharge. That's how I consider myself introverted. Now, what she's saying is if you consider yourself an introvert, it just means you don't like yourself. A sweeping generalization, a black and white thing to say. It's just absurd. I do think there are some people that are just different. Now, to her point with it, if someone doesn't like themselves, sure, they might not like being social as much sometimes, sure. But to say it as black and white as she's saying it, no, I can't get behind that.
human beings are a source of energy. So, and the reason I say that is most introverts become extroverts when they're around people that like them. So your fear is not that you're just shy and quiet. Your fear is you're worried about what people who don't know you or don't have any opinion on you, you're worried what they're going to start thinking of you.
Kind of. I mean, it's not just that. Even if I'm around people that like me, I want to have my alone time from anybody eventually. And it's like, and what does she think? No, there are some people that just have these extroversion biases. Teal Swan, she's another one. She also has an extroversion bias. And I think I should go over what Teal says about it because that is something I actually disagree with that she says. She says only people who are introverted, it's because they're afraid to be who they are or they're being fake. And I'm like, Teal Swan, like what a ridiculous thing to say that is.
So I just think that insecure people turn to AI to help them develop and grow. Secure people turn to human beings because firstly, they feed off their energy. And secondly, they want to learn and grow and be mentored by other people's energies. So I think it's a more insecure thing rather than a gender thing.
I like what you said a lot about the introverts just not liking the feedback they're receiving.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, for me, I used to do.
And sometimes that can happen, but to make it as black and white as she's saying, not at all. Not at all.
True crime, serial killer related content. I would get recognized in public, and I really didn't like it because I didn't like the content I was doing.
Yes.
So people would be like, "Oh, this content you're doing is so great," and I'm like, "Oh gosh, like I just hate like being recognized." But now that I do a podcast about business, psychology, etc., it's a lot more refreshing to meet people, and I actually really like being recognized.
That's exactly what it is. Introverts don't like being seen because they don't like who people are seeing. And I'm the same. Like, for example, right now I've got makeup on and I'm excited to meet you. But if you bumped into me and I'm coming from the gym and I've got a cap on, I'm sweating, I'll be like, "Oh, Jack, get away from me." Like, I would literally hide from you. What introversion is living with that mentality that I don't like what people are seeing. So I've got to run away from people unless.
Like, I think she's just inventing this. She's inventing this on the spot. Or at best, she learned this from Teal Swan. The one thing I don't like that Teal Swan said. And I don't know. It seems like just a bias against introverted people, if you ask me. I tend to think everyone's a little bit different. There are some people that are extroverted. They get their sense of self-worth, or I shouldn't say that. They get energized from being around other people. And does every extrovert really like themselves? Definitely not always. Definitely not always. Sometimes it can be a mask. Like there's people that wear a mask and they're being extroverted. Doesn't mean they like themselves. So she's just being black and white with this, if you ask me.
They're my close circle and close. They make the barriers to entry so high to get to know them. You're never that important that people have to be so similar, so this, so that, just to touch you and come near you. You have to expand your social circle. I cannot tell you what a medicine that is. You have to expand it. Introversion is code for I don't like me. I assume you don't like me, so let me stay away from you. And I'm an introvert. The moment you like you become an extrovert. I promise you. Because even introverts, when they go on stage, and let's say, for example, they're a talented pianist, that introvert all of a sudden is now on stage in front of millions of people because they like what people are seeing. So it's the moment you like what people see, whether it's your looks, whether it's your talent, whether it's your conversation skills, you will never be an introvert. It's an impossibility.
That's fascinating. I feel like that's a whole other.
It's an impossibility to be an introvert if you like yourself. Totally untrue. Totally disagree.
Conversation, yeah. But I would say it's fairly common rhetoric that with this whole ChatGPT thing, that some women are replacing communication and getting advice from their man with advice from ChatGPT. And men, on the other hand, are replacing women with AI chatbots. We've seen a rise of that. What do AI girlfriends and OnlyFans do to men psychologically?
Create submission. And what I mean by this is I have personally never met a man that's gone on to pay for sex that hasn't been incredibly submissive sexually and submissive outside of that. And what I mean by that is dominant men want to know that they're pleasing the woman more than the woman pleasing her. They want to know whoever they're sleeping with, she's having the best time of her life. That's how they conquer women. They could care less, for them. And I don't mean to be crude, and I'm so sorry to say this, but for them, they can release in their hands, right? A release is a release. But the joy of sex is knowing that you have made this woman release. You've made this woman feel alive. You've procreated. You've spread your seed. That's what dominant men, masculine men have been designed to do. Sex is a form of her joy. It's just spreading your seed, but it's her joy, her submission, her loyalty is coming from your sexual acts. What submissive men have done is forgotten if she likes him, whether she's attracted to him, whether she wants anything to do with him. Who cares what she thinks, whether she's been traumatized, whether she's got a pimp behind her. They don't care about anything to do with her. I just need to ejaculate, make it happen. What kind of loser is going to have that mentality?
And she's acting like here, she's not the woman who is speaking all sorts of wild things and being the side chick that she was If you didn't know any better, you would never think that that was her. But it was. There was all sorts of recordings about it.
Like, you don't care she could be a sex slave for all you know. She could have a gun to her head when she comes home. She could be a robot. They don't care about that. They just care about their own release. Now, you as a man have to remember, you have been designed to spread seeds. You've been designed to conquer women. You've been designed to get them to be loyal and submissive to you. You are doing the exact opposite when you are using women as a device to help you climax rather than as a device to help you procreate, create a relationship, create loyalty out of her at very least. Instead, they're taking these very disloyal women because they're speaking to hundreds of men every single day and just using her to ejaculate. You're becoming, through lack of a better word, a bitch. Sorry, Jack. I've ruined the tone of the. I've ruined the tone.
I love it.
Right?
No, you're fine.
Yeah.
So a distinction I want to make here is,
And again, this guy, I don't know how old he is, but he deserves some blame for platforming her as big as he is. Over 3 million subscribers on YouTube, like I said, millions on TikTok. He deserves some pushback and honestly some consequences. I mean, what do people do? The consequences to enforce for him would be to not watch his stuff. It's really the only consequence he would feel, right? Because I'm still for free speech. I think you can talk to whoever you want to, but he should be called out. And maybe I'll call him out on my platforms as I'm doing right now, because I think he deserves it. It's just absurd. It's absurd that he's going to enable her to spew her nonsense and then not push back on it at all. And it's enabling her to continue exploiting and mistreating people. And that's ridiculous. I can't accept that. I can't tolerate that.
I mean, now that you say, I'm wondering if the AI chatbots are mostly used for something like masturbation, or if it's more of like an emotional connection. Because I've heard some people speak about like OnlyFans girls. The reason that they use OnlyFans over just basic pornography isn't necessarily for like sex, it's for the emotional intimacy they're getting.
I agree.
What do you think of like that side of it?
I do agree, but here's the problem. They want emotional intimacy from women out of their league. You can actually get emotional intimacy from most women in your league. That's the key word, in your league. Like for example, like somebody like, I don't know, a major celebrity, let's say Chris Brown, for example. I'm not gonna be able to give him emotional intimacy. He's gonna need like a supermodel and this, that, and the other. You pick the person, they will give you the right person, they will give it to you. They will give it to you. You have to stay in your league. And you will get emotional intimacy, you'll get loyalty, you'll get connection, you'll get physical intimacy. You get most things from people in your league, or at least at the same level you're bringing. The reason why these men are turning to OnlyFans models to get that emotional intimacy is because they are refusing to accept the levels of intimacy and connection from the women that are on their same league.
Sadia thinks she's a special panda. She's a special panda because she's an attractive woman, and she thinks she's on a certain league. And all of you other minions, you peasants out there that are not in her league, watch out.
So you take a very successful, handsome man, and chances are he's not paying as much to be around women because he will get them, or he'll stay in his league. But you take a man who has not worked on himself, has not looked after himself, has not been dominant, has not achieved a lot. I'm not just talking looks-wise, I'm talking even as a man. He's not a problem solver, he's not a decision maker, he's not masculine. And he wants emotional intimacy from a 10 out of 10 OnlyFans model. So he has to pay for it. But if he found another woman who is not looking after herself, not a great decision maker, all over the place, overweight, not working out, they'll probably give it to each other. So that emotional intimacy you're seeking is available, but you've just got to accept the level of attractiveness or the level of appeal you have. And men that don't accept their level of appeal will pay for it.
How can you know what league you're in?
Feedback. That's it. So what I mean by this is if you are constantly chasing people who are not responsive to your messages, don't want to meet up with you, don't want to sleep with you, don't want to touch you, and you're constantly chasing them, and you're thinking, I just have to learn this, or I just have to do this, or I just have to read a few more books, you're swimming in the wrong pool. Whereas how we actually know our league is you walk into a room, the person you lock eyes with locks eyes with you. easy. You're playing in the right field. Now I know I'm saying this, maybe I'm a bit privileged, or maybe you're very tall and handsome, maybe we're a bit privileged in saying that. I understand.
The most self-aware thing Sadia has ever said.
And that sometimes you don't like your league.
But how does a woman's league differentiate? Because I think most men have an idea of where they're at, but most women might have social media feeding into them to change where they are at realistically.
I would say with women, you focus on the men that want to be with you, not the men that want to sleep with you. That's how you know your league. So every woman maybe can get an NFL player or an NBA player to sleep with them. Yeah, that's your sexual league. But in terms of your actual league is how many of those want a relationship with you? How many of them want exclusivity with you? How many of them want to be with you for longer than just a night? I'm not saying it has to be marriage.
That's actually not a bad suggestion for women. Like, there's a difference between guys that just want to sleep with you versus who would actually want to be in a relationship with you. That's true.
Or whatever, but how many of those invest in you? Investment is a key thing. So you look at all the men, not the men that have slept with you, not the one that have gone to dinner, but how many of them have invested in you? How many of them have been semi-loyal to you? How many of them have done those things? They've warded off alternatives to be with you. That's your level as a woman. Would you agree or disagree? Tell me.
I would agree with that. I think it's pretty hard to gauge out as a woman if a man is interested in you, not just sexually. I think things like the 3-month rule, like waiting to have sex for 3 months or even longer, are usually useful. But yeah, it's a tough one, because I would say that even if you have sex after that 3 months, the man's psychology might change. You might not be interested.
I would say exclusivity is a great one. Like, how many men have chosen to be exclusive to you? Because men will sleep with lots of women at the same time. But if they're just exclusive to you, they're actually assessing you. While they're with multiple women, they're actually not really assessing the quality of any of them. But once they home in on one, they can assess the quality of it and decide if it's for them or not. So if you're getting exclusivity out of men, that's a great gauge of whether that's your league or not.
On social media algorithms, in 2025, your partner is living a second life on their phones. Some people complain, or this is kind of my assumption, that you don't know which version of them you're chasing that week. Their preferences, standards, what they desire shifts in real time based on trends and the videos they're being shown. How do you think that this is affecting relationships? And do you think some people are becoming, I guess, emotionally polyamorous, like getting their needs met through AI chatbots, creators, strangers online? Like, how do you kind of see social media affecting it?
Here's how social media affects it. And the reason why marriage is kind of disappearing and slowly disappearing for men and women, people like to think it's women, but it's actually for men and women. And the reason it's disappearing is people think marriage is about meeting this one particular person who's so amazing and so wonderful, and you fall in love with them. You'll naturally not want to see anybody else. You'll naturally want to get married, and it will just, you get a feeling, and that feeling will come, and then you'll get married and you'll have kids, and all of this nonsense you did beforehand, like going to Thailand and paying for sex or going on algorithms, all of that will just disappear, and you'll just meet this woman and you'll just, walk into the sunset and you'll have your kids. That's just simply not true. The real reason how people had marriages and maintained them is they practiced the skills and tools for them from a very young age. And what that meant would be simple things like they would speak to one person at a time because they couldn't text and talk at the same time. They would speak to one person at a time, or they would create skills that led to an acceptance of monotony. And what I mean by that is they would maybe accept that they eat the same meal every day. They might accept that they live in the same place from childhood to adulthood. They might accept that they stay in the same room most of their life. They accepted same was accepted, same was embraced, same was okay. Now we live in a world where variety is pushed. Algorithms are pushing you different things. Your attention span is decreasing. You're getting different needs met from different people. Everything is about variety. Now, in order to become successful at marriage, you have to practice a skill of monotony, doing a similar thing regularly. So a similar routine, waking up, doing at a certain time, going to sleep at a certain time, doing a similar thing forever. And that's why you see people who maybe met in high school and they stayed forever together, because they got into the habit of doing similar things forever. Yeah. Now, the people who traveled the world, went and moved from city to city, met thousands of different people, went on million vacations, have an algorithm that feeds them all these different things. Their brain is now not wired towards monotony, which makes it difficult to be wired towards monogamy, which makes it difficult to be wired for marriage. So it's untraining you for what you need in marriage and long-lasting relationships, which is monotony, monogamy, and consistency. If you have made your brain kind of repel that, you won't be able to have long-lasting relationships, regardless of the quality of the partner you have. That person might be your dream partner, but you don't have the skills to maintain that marriage anymore because you've been hijacked by all these alternatives.
What action would you recommend that most people in a relationship take to kind of fix that issue?
Remove alternatives. Remove complete alternatives. And what I mean by that is, have a look at your feed. Yeah, have a look at your feed. Now, is it constantly bombarding you with alternatives? That might be sexier women, it might be richer men, it might be more vacations, it might be, romantic dates, something that's different to your partner. If you are constantly being bombarded with the opposite behavior of your relationship and your partner and even yourself, you are going to keep an emotional eye open. But if you remove those alternatives, you kind of make that decision to be with this person, and you make that decision to improve this relationship. You don't need to compare it, you don't need to contrast it, you don't need to indulge in opposites. You'll be fine. But if you're constantly keeping your eye open to alternatives, you'll never truly be able to succeed at your relationship.
Do you think people who are in healthy relationships are being fed opposites?
They might be, but they're ignoring them. What happens with people in healthy relationships, everybody is going to be fed alternatives. You can walk down the street and see alternatives. You can go on your phone and see alternatives. What healthy people in healthy relationships do is avoid indulging in them. They see it for what it is, like passing cars. They just see it as that. The people who destroy their marriages are the ones that have to get into that car as it's driving past. So it's the kind of avoiding alternatives that will, if you can train your brain to do it, you'll be able to succeed, hopefully, in your relationships.
I think women have an idea of what this looks like for men. That if you see, I don't know, OnlyFans girls or women in bikinis on their TikTok page, they can assume that he's looking elsewhere. But how can a man know if a woman's cheating based on her TikTok feed?
The materialism that she's being presented with, because just like how men are being presented with OnlyFans naked models, and that kind of keeps their eyes open to somebody else, the equivalent for women is being fed alternative material items. So they'll be seeing diamond watches, vacations. They'll be saying, oh, if he wanted to, he would, or girls never settle. This kind of nonsense that they're being fed. And I remember like 10, 15 years ago, if a young, beautiful woman was with an older, unattractive man, she'd be seen as like a bit seedy, like, oh, there's something wrong with her. Now they'll be like, goals, get it, girl, get your.
We're going to speed this thing up. She's kind of boring me here. So we put it up to 1.25 speed and let's see how it goes.
No, I'm not here to judge, because at the end of the day, there's value in that. There's a value in pursuing whatever it is that you want to pursue, no problem. But if you want to know if your woman is going to be looking for some alternatives, it's not so much the sexy man in her feed. It's the woman showcasing what she gets from men. That is probably the alternatives. So it looks innocent. You're just looking at her feed and you're seeing a girl doing an unboxing, or you might see a girl just, coming home. But what they're feeding her slowly is your man ain't shit through these behaviors.
Little tip. If you've been trading crypto for a while and aren't consistently making money, it's not because you're unlucky. It's because you don't have a system. I used to think I could just watch a few YouTube videos, learn what an indicator is, jealous of cheating. They get jealous of spending. Do women see spending money on another woman as psychological cheating?
I would imagine so. I would imagine any kind of spending on other people, but I don't think they would necessarily get jealous of spending, because you've got to remember, most of the world is not rich. I know people like to think, oh, women just want money, all women want money. Well, then that would mean 7.8 billion men are single, but that's not true. Women are not seeking so much that their money or anything. A lot of it, what they're seeking is knowledge. And what I mean by that is women there's very little jealousy about things that they know and approve of. It's the things that they don't know and don't approve of that makes them jealous. So there are women out there that are mistresses with married men. They don't have a problem with it, because they know exactly that this is what's happening now. If she was on the other end of that, she would blow up, because she's like, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me? There's other women that do threesomes with their husband and they are totally involved. But if you did it behind her back, she would destroy him and destroy the family and all of those things. So actually, and I think this is human nature, not just women, jealousy stems from a hidden secret that has.
And she's all over the place now. I'm trying to see if there's anything interesting left in this whole interview. I'll try to pop through to see, but I'm not sure if there will be.
The sexual energy to it. As long as there's nothing hidden, even if it has a sexual energy, they might be okay with it. Or if something is not hidden and has no sexual energy, she won't get jealous. It's
full of love.
Who's actually in control is what's the driving force is actually attractiveness and attraction. I think women say they need emotional connection before they have sex, but if she meets a man that she's super attracted to, she'll probably sleep with him first and then develop the emotional connection after. She'll break the rules in that way. Similarly, men say that they need to, have sex and then they'll have that emotional connection. But if they're attracted to her enough, they can get combined. I think the secret ingredient people don't talk enough about is raw attraction. Raw attraction will make you think you've got emotional connection with people. People will watch somebody on TV and think they've got an emotional connection simply because they're attracted to her. So I think emotional intimacy is a byproduct of choosing somebody you're truly attracted to and then wanting that connection with them. What men get wrong is they do all of those things. They don't polarize. And what I mean by that is they don't even test her responsiveness. So they might go on a date with her. They don't even reach out to hold her hand, or they might go on take her shopping even. And they don't even, go and hug her and see what she'll respond. They don't want to test the responsiveness because they don't want the feedback. You have to test the responsiveness as quickly as possible. So even when you're picking her up for a date, it might even be a first date. But if you're attracted to her, you might, lean in to go and kind of hold hand. If she's like, oh, no way, immediately she's not super attracted. But if she's just a bit warm and she's a bit friendly and you lean in to talk to her ear and she kind of leans back, the responsiveness is your measure. I
mean, this is relationship 101 stuff, dating 101. If a woman's responsive to you as a guy, it's a good sign. If she's not, she's probably not as into you. And what does responsive mean? Oh, is she replying to your text messages? Is she actually making it so that you can set up a date with one another? Or is she always busy? Or whenever something gets scheduled, something always comes up and she flakes. This simple, basic stuff here.
Avoiding that by not polarizing her, you're just going to stay in the dark. You just have to measure it by doing it respectfully.
I'll ask, why do you think, as a therapist, why are women obsessed with serial killers? And what does that reveal about female psychology?
I want to know the answer to this because I personally can't sleep until I watch something murdery on TV. Even if it's a Dr. Phil episode, it has to be about murders. And then slowly I'll just drift into sleep and I don't know how or why. So I wish I was a bit more qualified to answer that. But I have no idea. But I could just say,
if only she said that about other things. If I was only more qualified to answer that. She answers that way in terms of watching serial killer documentaries, but in terms of things where she should actually say that about narcissists, etc. Oh no, I know everything I'm talking about with this.
From my personal experience, I kind of mastered just regular human being and human mindset. I kind of understood that. That's one area I'm always curious about because it's so something that you can't have regular conversations about. One of the reasons I don't really watch funny podcasts or people just having a little chat online is I can do that with my friends. I can emulate those TV shows myself, or even like the Kardashians. We can all go for dinner and have a little conversation. I can't have a conversation with a serial killer. I probably will never have a conversation with a predator, God willing, I will never have that. So it's having access to relations or information that I don't think I can access in the real world that makes it appealing to me. I can't speak for everybody, but that's what it does for me.
That's a unique one. Yeah.
Yeah. What's a normal way to answer that? Because I actually don't know.
I would say that most women, I think true crime is a 70% audience. Mm-hmm. My audience leaned a little more toward men because it was less about the stories and more so about the killers themselves, rather than the story of the victim. And I don't know, I didn't really go into that side. Mm-hmm. It was very detailed. But I would say most women watch it to learn how to protect themselves, or just have this feeling of protection, they want to know what would happen so they know how to protect themselves. And then there's the side of it that's just the morbid fascination, where I don't want to say they're turned on, but they're really just invested in things that are dark or taboo.
Yeah, I'm so, because you probably know far more than me in this because you've got a whole channel on it, but I don't even understand my own interest in it. And I don't know many people that have an interest, but I do also think that that's a great point because I always felt like I could be one of those women that could one day definitely happen to me. I'm stupid and a bit careless like that. That could definitely happen to me. I've always been super lucky with the men around.
More honesty, stupid and careless. How about that?
On me, but now being online, you can actually see there's predators out there that just want to abuse women and stuff. So I think it made me even more kind of interested on the mindset behind what creates that man. And this is why I'm really, really worried about the loneliness epidemic amongst men, is because I don't think a man with a healthy relationship with women and himself will ever become abusive towards women, whether that's, verbally abusive, whether that's physically abusive, whether that's psychologically, whether that's physically. But men that have an unhealthy relationship with themselves and with women, they enjoy bullying women. They enjoy attacking them. And they enjoy that predatory behavior.
And that part's true. I think most guys that are abusive probably aren't too thrilled, like with many things. But like I said the other day, there are some narcissists, I don't know how miserable they all are. Sometimes they're just completely selfish and they lack empathy. So they do what they do and they just don't care. Now, the people that get enjoyment from putting others down and abusing them, the sadistic folks, that's a whole nother thing. Like that's their way of getting enjoyment. And what does that say about them? And this is why a lot of narcissists will pick fights with people too, because it regulates them.
I just can't. Even when I first came online, I remember the first time I read a man writing a negative troll comment on mine. My head was confused. I was like, why would a man do that? I can understand women doing that, being a bit bitchy. I just didn't know men did that. Because in my world, I don't know men that would be like, yeah, fuck you, and you take your makeup off. I didn't know that men had this bitchiness to them. And then I realized that there's a whole world of bitchy men. They have like podcasts and they talk about other women and they gossip. And I'm like, are you a bitch? Like, what kind of man does that? I don't know men that do that. In the real world, the men I know, unless she's their wife, sister, daughter, they have no interest in that woman. Zero. They couldn't sit there talking about her, wondering what she's doing, wondering what she's up to, slandering her. That's just not what they would indulge in because
you know what she's doing here? She's calling out people like me, Abba and Preach, Goob, anyone who's called her out. She's saying, who are these guys? And the women who've called her out, who are they to talk about Sadia? How dare they call out Sadia Khan for lying and forging her credentials and being abusive? The men I know would never take the time to do that. And I would say, Sadia Khan, bad things happen. Evil happens when good people say nothing. You have to speak up sometimes. And that's where the toxic positivity folks would come in and say, hate only comes from below. And it's like, well, dude, sometimes people need to be called out. Full stop. So don't ever let somebody belittle you, talk down to you, or be dismissive of you just because you speak up. That's their way to try to get you to shut up. And they're trying to guilt trip you to shut up. But don't let it work.
Got better things to talk about. But the men that can spend so many hours doing that is fascinating to me because I'm just like, this is a real feminine trait. Gossiping is a female trait that has evolved to prevent men from straying. Like, oh, don't go near that girl, she's loose, or don't go near that girl, she's got a really strong brother. It's a female trait to prevent competition. Men would just fight. And they don't really fight women, so they would just fight each other. So the men that do these kind of gossip channels, I'm always a bit shocked and almost a bit fascinated. I'm like, how did you get here? What went wrong?
It is very interesting. Like, I will say my personal experience. Like, if I ever meet up.
And what is he? I mean, social media in general, it caters to the gossip channels. It caters to that because those are the channels to get attention and money. And here she is just belittling them. But there's also like just creators that do that too. Spencer Cornelia. He calls out grifters, CoffeeZilla, or whatever he calls himself now. That's what he does. He calls out people that are screwing people over, men or women, doesn't matter who. He's calling them all out. And Sadia is basically saying, it's such a feminine thing to do. It's like, nah, shut up, Sadia Khan.
Like back when I was not in a relationship, if I met a girl and said that I did a podcast, they would be like, you do a podcast? You're a guy with a podcast? Just like instant association, like instant turn off for women to have opinions that might be about things that guys shouldn't care about.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is why would a man care about women wearing filters, women wearing makeup? Unless she's your girlfriend, absolutely. Unless she's your wife or your sister or in your.
And she's calling out Goob right now on Instagram because that's what he does. He calls out all these gym influencers. But he also called out Sadia. And so that's why she's saying this. Only feminine men would call out women for filters and makeup, whatever.
your circle, have your opinion. But a random woman you're never going to see, has no interest in you, no interest in her. It's just a bizarre concept. But luckily, your podcast is very useful and it's very helpful. But imagine if that's a man just making a podcast about stuff that is just so irrelevant. It's just a strange audience you'll curate when you do that as a man.
It's very interesting. It kind of puts
Shut, this guy's a dork. But so with her, a strange audience, what is she doing? Shaming, guilt tripping. And basically what they're doing, though, is cultivating an audience of people that want to see justice, that want to see people that are doing shitty things called out. That's a popular thing. And Sadia Khan thinks, no, you shouldn't be doing that. You should just let them do what they want to do. Let them do it. Mind your own business. And those are the ways that they'll say to enable abuse to continue. The people that say, mind your own business, look after yourself, look at your side of the street. I bet you're not perfect. Those are all the ways they try to shut you down. Or hate only comes from below. You're just jealous. I hate all of those.
It's the responsibility on women almost to fix all the problems with the male loneliness epidemic. I guess largely would your intuition say it's a mixture of men and women, or like, are women to blame at all? Are they responsible, or does your intuition kind of tell you like men have to fix this?
I would say it's a technology problem. I don't actually think it's female induced. I don't think it's male induced. I think it's technology induced. And it starts very young. I've got a baby nephew who I adore, and he's 5 years old and he loves running and playing. But the moment you give him a computer, all of his personality disappears and he starts going like this, and he won't talk, he won't do anything. And you take the computer away and he's filled with life. And now I think the kind of inducing technology from such a young age has men lose the skills that they need in order to become dominant, masculine, and attractive. Because they're losing it through video games, they're losing it through pornography, they're losing it through just general interaction, they're losing the skills that makes them attractive. As a result, women are becoming more dominant and being like, you're a bitch, you don't know what you're doing, blah, blah, blah. And they're getting more frustrated at this man. And so what ends up happening is when that man that's been dependent on technology goes into the real world and starts dating, they're like, fuck, women just moan all day and they just tell me off all the time, and they basically rude and horrible and mean. Let me just avoid them even more. So what ends up happening is the devil in between. The world will want you to think that men hate women and women hate men, because that's how the devil is designed. But really what it does is it creates devices to create the a war between them. And technology is actually the cause. It's not actually men or women. It's the use of technology that's caused this rift between men and women.
So largely you would say that technology makes men submissive.
Absolutely.
And that's a root cause of all this.
Root cause, because the opposite of technology is interpersonal relationships.
Another generalization.
And interactions and sports, and the opposite of technology is what men are designed to do. So when you're playing a Wii sport and you're going with your friends online, the real way to do it is go play basketball, go play football. What would that teach you? Camaraderie, competition, testosterone, athleticism. It would teach you those skills that make women respect you anyway, but you're replacing those skills. It gives you the high of that without actually the achievement. So actually what's creating the epidemic is the technology that's making them not have the traits that women find attractive.
Something you said here that goes in line with this. Why do men who get cheated on once always get cheated on?
It's very common. If you get cheated on once as a man, you'll find yourself getting cheated on again and again, because there's traits that you possess that got you there in the first place that are probably going to continue. And
What about that? Blaming the guys for what the women do. Now could you imagine if the genders were reversed on this? Her blaming the women for what men do? It would not fly too well with that, would it? It'll fly a little better for her because she's only saying this about men. But if it's narcissistic women, they're going to do the same things that narcissistic men do. They'll cheat and they're going to need narcissistic supply. Now, if a guy comes to me and he says, Jared, every woman I'm with cheats. And so I say, well, if it's a pattern now, what I would say to you is probably something you got to do better in the vetting process at this point. You're picking something, or there's some sort of trauma at play. Maybe you had a narcissistic parent, a narcissistic mother, and women like that feel familiar to you. And so you're repeating that pattern. That's one. Or maybe you need to learn the red flags because, yeah, I think there's going to be red flags of cheating women, just like there's red flags of cheating men. And if you know what to look for, you'll probably be able to pick them out. But either way, if you're with women that are constantly cheating and it happens several times, yeah, there's something to take a look at there.
Would say that the first kind of trait, the kind of trajectory I notice with men that get cheated on is firstly, they grew up without a relationship with their father. That's almost always the men that get severely treated on continuously. They grew up without a relationship with their father. Why men who grew up without a father are far more likely to be cheated on is because in their household, they kind of thought mum was right and dad was wrong.
Sometimes, again, sometimes there can be guys that lack self-respect and had a father in the house too.
Dad was a piece of shit, mum was an angel. So they believe women automatically. They don't question a woman's judgment. Secondly, in their home, they didn't see mums being questioned. They never saw somebody saying, hey, what time are you coming home? Where are you? Who are you with? Are you okay? They never saw that. They just saw an independent woman acting like a single woman. So when they go into relationships, they take these independent women who continue to act single and try to get into a relationship with those women. They don't realize that women, when they grow up with mum and dad, you realize, okay, mum cooks or mum comes home at a certain time, mum doesn't stay out late, mum and dad are always, mum kind of listens to dad listens to mum. They've got a connection, there's a mutual respect there. But when they grow up with just their mum or hated their father, they think how you become a good man is just listen to a woman, just obey her, just let her do whatever she wants and obey her. So they select women with very single traits, women who want complete independence, women who want no control, and women who don't necessarily respect men because they didn't grow up respecting a man. And they gel with that kind of woman. So when they form a relationship with this woman, maybe she's got daddy issues as well, maybe she doesn't like being told what to do, just like their mom was. They think that that's normal. They don't realize that healthy relationships or healthy parenting look like mom would listen to dad would listen to mom would lie, dad would lie. They'd be equally problematic. They just think women are right. So when they enter a relationship with this really independent woman who clearly has no desire to change her habits in order to make this marriage work, she might still be talking to an ex, she might still be doing holidays by herself, she might be drinking a bit too much, she basically wants no form of control. They see that as how women come. They don't realize that's how cheating women come. There's a big difference between cheating women and loyal women. They're polar opposites. Loyal women actually prefer staying home and don't go out too late and hate their exes. Usually they're like, oh, I don't want to talk to him. And they might not even hate him, but they just have no interest in maintaining those ties. That's how loyal women come. They don't
Bottom line, regardless of what a woman does, you want to find a woman with character, just like you want to find a man with character. People with good character aren't going to cheat. So then the thing would become, pick people that have good character. Again, easier said than done, but that's what you do. And this starts with trusting ourselves, practicing radical self-respect. The better we are on our own, I think the better quality person we'll be able to attract. And then you'll be able to sense people that have good character. If you take your time and you let things unfold, and hopefully you have a good friendship. You could have a good friendship first. That helps too. But it will unfold naturally. Like right now, there would be no excuses for me to find a woman that would cheat on me. Like that would be, to me, in my eyes, especially considering what I do, that would be unacceptable. I would say, what the hell did I do wrong to wind up in a situation like that? And I could tell you, I'm pretty damn sure that kind of situation just won't happen to me because I wouldn't be committing to a woman that had the type of character that would do something like that. Period.
Recognize loyal women. They just think women should be doing whatever they want and a man should be listening. So what happens is they find themselves cheated on once, but he hasn't worked on that naivety. And so what ends up happening is he picks a woman similar to that, and then picks a woman similar to that, picks a woman similar to that. And he doesn't realize that there's smoking guns when you meet a cheating woman. He doesn't know how to recognize them.
Would you say it's more about the women he's selecting or about the man he's become after being cheated on?
The women he's selecting is a result of the man he is. And that man that he is a bit too compromising. And what I mean by that is he thinks that if I just, don't say anything, don't have any boundaries, just let her do whatever she wants, she'll be happy. Women actually want to know your frame. They want to know your guidelines. They want to know that if they hit the ball too far, it's going to go off pitch.
And what is she talking about here? She's talking about a guy that's a little more of a people pleaser, that's not confident, that's not assertive. In other words, a guy who is not providing positive masculine containment. And she even mentioned it in a roundabout way, the guy that has no limits for himself and he's not fending for the woman that he's with. And that's what what Sadia said here. Oh, the woman can just do whatever and it'll go too far sometimes. But again, even the woman you provide positive masculine containment for, you're still going to want that person to have good character. I mean, regardless of the situation, if you're committing or marrying someone, you want to be with a person that is of good moral character.
They want to know that. What these men tend to think is the more you submit and obey, the more she'll love you. When that's just not how we're designed. We want to know where the borders are so that we don't cross them too far. And it's all unconscious. If you ask a woman, she'll be like, I don't want a man to tell me shit.
And so the borders, what does she mean? She's meaning the positive masculine containment part. Like, we have that safe space within the clan where the guy is protective of her and he wants to make sure that she's in a good place. And I posted a video about this on Facebook. I didn't get hate about it on YouTube, but on Facebook, all sorts of guys were ripping me for it. They're like, oh, dude, you sound like a simp. Because it was the video where I said, before you call her a narcissist, make sure it's not this. And I said, make sure it's not that she doesn't feel unsafe and unloved. And so many people misunderstood what I was even talking about. Even women were like, no, feeling unloved and unsafe has nothing to do with narcissism. And I was like, dude, you're missing the point. It's not the point of what I'm saying. I didn't say that did have anything to do with narcissism. I'm just telling guys, before you would actually think someone's a narcissist, which guys who don't understand it really, they might make that accusation without knowing any better. But there are women that when they feel unloved or unsafe, they might be a little more irritable or moody. It's just something that happens. And to make sure it's not that first. And for the guy to know, all right, how am I loving her? How am I trying to anticipate her needs? How am I trying to make her feel emotionally safe? Good things to ask yourself if you actually want a serious relationship with somebody. If it's a casual relationship, then like whatever. But in a real relationship, that's going to be something that happens. Or that's going to be something the woman wants, I should say.
This, that, and the other. But then she'll say, my ex was a narcissist. He never used to do this. He never used to listen and never let me do that. Because that's who you fell in love with. You like borderlines. You enjoy them. Everybody does. Children even need them. You give children a coloring stick, they'll start doing it on the walls. You tell them no, they'll stop. And they become better children. They need them. So same thing with humans, men and women, we need them. And I would say, actually, that applies to men as well. I'll sometimes meet a woman and she'll say, oh, I can't believe my husband cheated on me, blah, blah. And I was like, what was his behavior? He'd always be drunk. He'd always go take drugs. He was always in Vegas every weekend. He was never telling me where he was. He'd come home at 4 a.m. I can't believe he cheated. What are you talking about? He had all of the footsteps. So it's the footsteps that people are tolerant of. That's why they accept it, why they get cheated on once and they tend to get cheated on forever.
So that's not completely wrong. Like, what she's basically saying is, if you ignore the red flags, then you're more likely to get what you get. And that's true. Don't ignore the red flags. And part of this also is, as a man or woman, working on ourselves as well. Learning how to practice radical self-respect. Learning how not to ignore red flags. Learning how to be assertive. Learning how to have boundaries and enforce consequences if necessary. Learning how to not be a people pleaser, learning how not to abandon ourselves, learning how to own who we are. All of these, it all goes into it.
It's a great line. It's the footsteps they're tolerant of.
Yeah.
A problem that women might be facing in 2025, and I haven't seen any videos of this on my algorithm, but this is a guess. So influence of figures like Andrew Tate, Myron Gaines, I would guess that some men are misusing their advice and have become logical, detached, and numb, never implying that they have issues because women want them to open up. And I think that there's a proper way to do it. So how can a guy open up to his partner while still being masculine?
Here's the thing with vulnerability. There's a big distinction between being an emotional man and a vulnerable man. Women will be repelled by emotional, sensitive men. Repelled. So if you're hypersensitive, if you can't take feedback, if you can't, you're a bit crumbling whenever there's a problem, and you're emotional. Unfortunately, outside of deaths, they don't want to see it. They don't want to see you emotional, but they
So
do. Want
should you say the words like "I'm sad" ever?
No, you can say I'm sad, but here's the key. The emotional part is you look dysregulated. That's the main thing. Outside of deaths with pets, families, whatever, you can be dysregulated. But general life, how you remain vulnerable is that you open up about what's upsetting you. You can be sad, stressed, angry, whatever. But your mindset or your frame is, but I'm going to try and solve this problem. That's all. If you are just so emotional and you're so upset and you're such a wreck and you can't get into problem solving and decision making, she will slowly lose attraction to you. She might not happen overnight. People make out like it's instant. It's not instant. At first, she might really love it. She's like, oh my God, we feel so connected. And he's telling me about his divorce. So he's telling me about his school, like how he didn't get into school and how his dad's a narcissist.
And again, this is all about the balance with it, right? Like nobody wants the man that's going to be unraveling at the smallest thing and is dysregulated and a mess. Yeah, no woman's going to want that. But they'll also probably want someone that can communicate their emotions and feelings as well, as long as it's not too like ridiculous. But it's about the balance of it all. And having a solution-oriented mindset, yeah, as a guy, for themselves, I think that's good. Sometimes men can make the mistake of wanting to solve the woman's problems, and that's not always the right thing to do, depending on the situation.
I'm loving this connection. At first, she might even encourage you to do more. What will really remove her attraction from you is your inability to solve the problems. So if you've mentioned a problem to her, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months later, that problem still exists, she will lose all attraction. It will still exist. So explain every problem that you're going through. That's not a problem. Explain every emotion that you're going through. But you're not emotional about it. You're vulnerable, but you're still a problem solver no matter what. And if there's problems that you can't solve, you let go of them. You slowly stop moaning about them. Like if you're going to complain about your weight, for example, no problem. Complain the first month, second month, third month. You've worked out, you've got a personal trainer, or you've taken Ozempic. I don't care. You've solved that problem. But if you're still complaining about things that you can easily solve, that's when she loses respect.
Because it makes her feel unsafe and that she has to solve the problem for you.
She makes her feel like you can't lead because you can't make decisions that benefit yourself. How would you make decisions that benefit her?
So if you don't have something solved or have an idea for it, you probably shouldn't bring it up yet.
I think if you don't have you can mention it, but you then have to realize that as you're mentioning it, try and figure out solutions to it. And if you can't find solutions, get other men to help you. Get other men, anyone, get people to help you. Men are designed to.
And men, I think it's important for men to have male friends too, because for the problems that you really don't know how to solve, and maybe it's a male-oriented problem, other guys are going to be better to go to in that case. Just like other women will be able to better help women with female problems, with women problems. The same is true for men. I don't think that should be a controversial thing to say, but some people probably think it is.
In tribes, this whole idea that you have to do everything by yourself and everything, that's not true at all. You can actually learn so much by having an older man in your life that's a mentor, having a man that's made a bit of money in the same area as your mentor. Don't be afraid to seek advice from people who are more intelligent or successful or healthier than you in different areas. Seek advice from others.
And that's a wise thing to say. That is smart.
But try not to do it from podcasts. Try and do it from real people in real time that you've seen the success of.
I think toxic masculinity traits are maybe somewhat obvious. Rage, control, sometimes physical violence. But what is the dark truth of toxic femininity that no one talks about?
And before she gets into that, I don't even like the term toxic masculinity. I think there's toxic behaviors and there can be toxic systems. I don't know why they feel the need to throw in masculinity in there too. They'll say, well, it's systemic. Well, then that's just a toxic system. And there absolutely is toxic systems. You could say capitalism in general is exploitative, which makes it toxic. You can make a fair argument for that. And clearly people have toxic behaviors, and again, when people say toxic masculinity, what do they even mean? Like, Just guys that don't know any better. It's what they're striving for that they think masculinity is, but it's a toxic version of it. It's like that's just a toxic behavior. They're just being toxic at that point. But let me see what she says about toxic femininity, and maybe we'll balance it with the reciprocal.
I think the darkest side of toxic femininity is expecting traditional masculinity while rejecting traditional femininity. That's the core of toxic femininity. And what that looks like is you need to be a provider. I will never go 50-50. What kind of man does 50-50? Oh my God, you should be a provider. You should be a man. But if the same traditional roles are implicated on women and said, okay, well, then maybe women should cook, maybe they should nurture, maybe they should have children, maybe they should just do the things that are naturally feminine. They'll say, what? That's so archaic. That's so old fashioned. I'm not a maid. Look, just like how we unconsciously like a man that provides and protects, no matter what happens in times, we feel loved by that. We can't shift biology. Men feel loved when they're nurtured. It just is. If you cook for them, if you organize their life a little bit, if you nurture their children for them, they find that feminine. You don't get to decide what's.
And why do I have a feeling that Sadia Khan doesn't do much cooking? Why do I have that feeling? I have a feeling she probably doesn't do much cleaning either, for that matter.
Feminine. Oh, and they'll say things like, oh no, I bring my support to the table, or I'm just my energy, or I'm just there to look pretty. And just these are shallow, selfish, narcissistic ways of seeing gender roles. He should be providing and investing, and I should just be existing. If you want to remove the narcissism from gender roles and narcissism from toxic femininity, is you replace it with, I love a man that provides and protects. I really want to enjoy that. And if he wants, meals cooked, or if he wants something in exchange for that, whatever it is, it's not narcissistic for him to expect something in return for that. They want a man to be totally selfless while they be totally selfish. And that doesn't make sense in the real world. So I think that toxic femininity is having.
And again, she can call that toxic femininity. I'll say that's toxic. But I get what she's saying. I get what she's saying.
Very clear idea of what traditional masculinity looks like, but complete rejection of traditional femininity. That's the toxicity, because it's actually narcissism disguised as wanting a traditional man.
I would say that's the main discrepancy as well.
Yeah, because I can't believe there's so many women that say, I want a provider, men should be providers. But then when they say that, I will never do wife duties when I'm a girlfriend, but you want him to take you shopping and buy you stuff, but you can't do wife duties while you're a girlfriend. What's that going to, like, how does that make sense to you even as a woman? But it's that rejection of anything that is traditionally feminine that is super toxic, because whether you like it or not, that's just how femininity has been evolved. Even in the animal kingdom, what would the women do? They stay, look after their cub, they feed them, they feed the man, and that's it. But they want to reject that part, but hold on to the traditional masculinity part, which I think is unhealthy for women. Is training them to be selfish and narcissistic rather than being a team.
I think your overall view of relationships is fairly optimistic, and a lot of the negatives you see is that people aren't more toxic than ever, but they just think everyone is more toxic than ever.
Yeah.
But for those who are actually stuck in a truly toxic relationship and they think there's no safe way to end things, how do you break free from a toxic relationship?
I would sit with somebody you trust and outline the exact relationship from beginning to end, what's going on. And if, as you're explaining that relationship, you start to think, oh God, I'm being a bit unreasonable. She's actually a good girl, or he's actually a nice, but what am I doing? Like, I should be grateful. You're probably not in a toxic relationship. But if, as you're saying it, you're starting to feel embarrassed, you're starting to cover up, you're starting to feel like, what am I doing? Take that as your wake-up call. So that's the first step. Second step, I would say, is that you have to realize that you need at least a couple of deal breakers with everybody in your life. And with this person, you might be in a toxic relationship, but you can't pinpoint what exactly they've done. Better thing to do is, don't worry about them changing. Ask yourself, do you have any deal breakers? Do you have one or two deal breakers that they keep doing? If they do these deal breakers, I can't expect them to change. I just have to reduce my attachment. Reduce your attachment to deal breakers. Anytime they do deal breakers, if it's not a deal breaker, try and make it work. If there's deal breakers going on, reduce your attachment. And the final thing that you need to do is ask yourself, if they stayed exactly the same and never changed, would you be okay? If the answer is, if they stayed exactly the same and never changed, it's not ideal, but it's okay. I can make it work. But if the answer is, oh my God, I'd be terrified if they stayed exactly the same, or I'd be terrified to have kids with him if he stayed exactly the same, that's another wake-up call. So
And again, this is common sense stuff that I would say all the time, right? If you have to wish they were who they used to be, or you wish they would change and you're not happy with who they are right now, that's a problem, because most people are not going to change. And unless they do those 5 ingredients of change I always talk about, and at least try, you should not expect an iota of change from them. And don't get confused by the words. They'll say all sorts of things, but words are not to be trusted. Trust those actions first and foremost.
use those things to navigate whether this is good for you or not, and then slowly start to exit. And how you start to exit, the actual execution of that, is you can't exit straight away. Yeah, that might not happen. The only thing you can do is reduce your investment. So if normally you would be available all day, every day to see them, do everything for them, pay for everything for them, you slowly start to reduce your investment. It's not that you just cut them off cold turkey, because you probably won't be able to do that. Slowly reduce your investment to that person. Whatever it is that you're investing a lot into, that's what's keeping you there. That's actually the drug that's keeping you there. Reduce your investment slowly, slowly, slowly. And within 6 months, you will naturally feel that detachment.
I guess in the instance that
What kind of relationship is she even talking about? Whether you would need to slowly disengage for 6 months. Like what? I mean, if it's bad enough, why would you need to take 6 months? I don't really get what she's talking about there.
you wouldn't be comfortable with things staying the same. Say the problem was, I don't know, maybe a woman is constantly complaining that her man isn't providing for her, and she feels so stressed that she has to work all the time, and he's not in a place where he's able to provide for her. And he's like, I can't deal with this behavior any longer, but if I get to a place I provide for her, is it reasonable to assume that she would be better, or is it unreasonable to assume that it would fix
Depends on the
things?
level of resentment that she's held. If there's a lot of frozen anger for what happened in those times, then even if he repairs, she might still feel resentment. But if it's a case of she's actually not resentful, she's just frustrated, she's not asking for anything unreasonable, and she's not generally an unreasonable person. She's not trying to make you feel like shit. It's just that this is getting too difficult. If you know that she's relatively reasonable, she doesn't look to put you down, you've just put her in a position where she's left with no choice but to put you down, then the type of person she is, she'll probably be grateful that you just recovered and you repaid. But you have to check her level of resentment. And how you measure the person's level of resentment is, are they reasonable or are they unreasonable? So what I mean by this is she asking for designer stuff and going here and she's being materialistic, or is she just asking for regular, like, let's get our lives together, let's get a home together, let's start with kids? So is she reasonable in her request or unreasonable? If she's reasonable, chances are she's not going to hold the resentment. If she's an unreasonable person, even if you improve, she's probably still going to find something wrong.
Sadia, there's been a lot said about you recently, some of it fair, some of it not. Why do you think people have targeted you so aggressively?
Oh.
And what do you say to those who now question your credibility?
So is he just playing dumb here or something? Oh my goodness, let's hear this. I didn't listen to this part.
Okay. Well, actually, I did talk in New York, and I was on stage, and the woman, it was held by successful men, about entrepreneurs, and the women there, one of the women there was very honest, and she said that my reason for not wanting you there, not liking you, I didn't even watch your content, but I hated the way other men would see you as kind of like an epitome of a valuable person, or an epitome of like an elegant woman, or the epitome of that. And I think what happens is, if I said the exact same things and I did the exact same content, but maybe was 20 years older, or maybe I, was a bit overweight, whatever it is, I think it would resonate a lot better with people. I think they would just accept that this is a form of wisdom. I think society is not used to the idea of a woman being a bit put together and having some intellectual credibility. So if they can't attack you about your appearance, and they can't attack you about your chastity, they'll go straight for your credibility.
This is a bunch of bullshit, honestly. Until you address you lying about your credentials and forging them, this is all just a deflection. You're not addressing the real problem. You're pretending it's because you're a woman and put together. That is not what it is. There's plenty of women that are attractive and are put together that don't get put through this scrutiny, and rightfully so, because they didn't lie. They didn't forge their credentials. They don't make massive generalizations that invalidate tons of people. That's the difference.
Now, there's what they've tried to do is attack me on all fronts. They've tried to say she's not chaste, and slander is always really effective way to reduce a woman's kind of value, and they're not credible. And then overall,
and she's the one that slanders women. She's the one constantly bad talking women in the comments. So who does she think she is to be calling that out? She does it. Projection.
she's the worst thing ever. She's like the devil. And so they've tried to do all of that, and successfully. I'm not going to lie, they've done it very well. But the problem is people aren't actually invested in the truth. They're invested in you breaking down the person that they envy or hate the most. So even whether there's truth to it or not, they're not actually invested in that. So I'd love, even if I was to give my side of the story, the problem I'm going to face is the people that have hatred and jealousy towards you don't care about the truth.
She's given the toxic positivity playbook. They're just got hatred in their hearts and they're jealous. It's like, actually, no, they're just calling you out correctly. So knowing they're calling you out correctly, what would you say? And she's got nothing.
And even though that we can easily find the truth, they don't want to do the investigation for that. So, for example, one of the comments was, that she charges $8,000 an hour. If you just click on my link on my bio, you'll see I charge $300.
That was the least of the problems.
An hour, which is, 100 times less than what they're saying. But they don't want to do that fact checking, or even the fact that they say, oh, she was with a married man because there's some kind of voice recording. That I can be honest with you, and
that's the guy I was telling you she was calling out. Goob reached out to me because Sadia sued him. And so Goob asked me, is Sadia suing you? And I said, no. I got lucky, I guess. But I don't know what he was doing that I wasn't. So I wanted to make sure I got my language right, because 8,000 was wrong. That was an exaggeration someone was saying. It is the $300 an hour. There was $8,000 for a coaching package. You got to be specific. If you're calling out people, you do have to be accurate in how you call it out.
Happy for you to even bring the receipts to this.
Yeah, the voice recording essentially, to my understanding, looked like you were saying something to another woman about a guy that she was with. Can you kind of explain the situation?
Yeah, absolutely. So what actually happened is I had no memory of this whatsoever. I've never been with anybody married, never been with anybody engaged.
No memory of it. What does that sound like? When a narcissistic person claims to forget what happened conveniently to avoid accountability, I don't remember that. I forget that happening. Likely story to avoid accountability.
Verifiable fact. So I assumed this was fake. When I went to the police and stuff about it and legal things, I said just to ask around and see what's been going on. And I spoke to somebody. In 2021, I was a teacher. I wasn't famous. There was nothing. I was not a famous person in any way, shape, or form. So I didn't understand what was going on. But I went to everybody I worked with. I was a teacher of psychology. So people who say, oh, she's got fake degrees and fake this. I was literally teaching psychology for 10 years before I did this. You can't fake that. And I literally have all the qualifications for that. So you can't work in institutions without qualifications.
And that's a BS thing there too. Teaching. She has a teaching degree, and she was not teaching psychology either.
So I was working as a teacher of psychology, and there was one person I worked with, and he said, I don't know if you know this or remember this, but there was a girl that I just started dating. I didn't know her very well. Like, we've never been an official, because this person's never been married, never been engaged. And the troll who released this has referenced him by
my buddy Goob. J.O. asked me not to post him or involve him. I've respected that, and I understand how privacy, blah, blah, blah.
By the name J.O. This person's never been married, never been...
And here's the other thing. She did not address the forging of the documents, and she did not address the Abba and Preach video. Abba and Preach had her on, and they went over every little bit, and she didn't have answers. That's what you need to know. There was no answers.
Engaged, never been in a serious relationship. He's very young, and so none of that is true. You can even see from pictures he's never been married or engaged. So I didn't think there was anything to worry about. And he said, oh, but I just started seeing some girl. She kind of went through my phone and saw that we send videos and memes to each other during work because we work together. And she rang you. Do you remember she rang you? And I was like, I actually don't remember this. And he's like, she rang you and she recorded it without you knowing. I had no idea of this. So I was like, yeah, but where would she get the married part from? And he said, before that, they've only snipped 6 seconds of a 20-minute call. Before that, she was saying, oh, well, what kind of woman are you? I bet you spend all your time on your knees, and kind of insulting my religion, consulting my background. I didn't know this.
And so, for those of you who don't know, the 6-second clip, what Sadia Khan said was, I can suck your husband's dick whenever I want, and he'll see me whenever I want. So whatever she's saying right now, that's what she's trying to spin. That's what she said. Full stop. Take what you will from that.
Woman, I'd never been with this man. He's not married. They're not engaged. And I said, excuse me, don't get rude to me. If I wanted to, because she said, this is what you do, the key word. And I said, if I wanted to, I could do birthday, wedding, I could do all of that. But I don't want your man. Nobody wants your man. I even went and said,
she's lying. She's lying because she said, I already did see your man on days where he was seeing you. He came over to see me. And I asked his D then and this and this. So this is a bunch of nonsense.
All these other women that this guy messages and talks to. And I said, nobody wants your man. Nobody's with your man. Nobody wants him. Nobody's been with him. Nobody wants him. You need to speak to this person because none of us are involved. He's not married. He's not engaged. She's never been married. He's online. You can see all of his data online. He's never been married, engaged. The troll that's released this also knows he's.
And so wait a minute. I should pause this so you can all see it. And I'll post up the audio. But I have to find it really quick. Where am I at in this video? 123. So we'll backspace. Okay, here it is. You see what I see? Okay, you still see what I see.
Sadia Khan has admitted to cheating. A popular dating coach who charges upwards of $8,000 for advice.
Not quite accurate.
Sadia Khan has just confessed to the rumors about her affair with a married man. The Instagram page that first broke the news set her up inviting
And that's Goob right there.
Sadia to a live stream. And there, she admitted it. Here's how it went.
So I recently exposed Sadia Khan on my page for being a high-value woman, high-value man coach, but as we learned, she was a side piece in somebody else's relationship.
You have attitude, and I can do it today if I want to.
Go on.
And I can do it on your wedding day and your birthday.
And preach, and we set up a call with Sadia Khan. And when I say set up a call, what I really mean to say is that we convinced her that Abba was on her side and that he was doing a call with her so that he could do his own.
So they skipped it. They didn't say what she had said. Where's the thing?
Sadia Khan is getting cancelled.
Ugh. They're going to make it difficult to find now.
No interest in maintaining those ties. That's how loyal women come. They don't recognize loyal women. They just think women should be doing whatever they want and a man should be listening. So what happens is they find themselves cheated on once. But he's online. You can see all of his.
So maybe if you go back into some of my other videos there with Abba and Preach, they have all the audio. And what she says is what I said she said. They're probably trying to take it down because they don't want the truth being out there. Unless the Abba and Preach video is still down, but I don't think it is.
data online. He's never been married, engaged. The troll that's released this also knows he's never been married, engaged, and also knows there was no affair. That's why he's got a little snippet of him, but he won't take the whole voice recording, and he won't show the interview with the man, because the moment he releases an interview with the man, everybody can verifiably check he's online on Instagram, been there for 10 years,
And again, she's claiming she teaches psychology, but she's not a psychologist. How do you teach psychology if you're not a psychologist? How do you teach psychology if you're not credentialed in that area? It doesn't add up.
Online presence, everybody can easily see he's never been married, never been engaged. So his whole story falls apart. So that's why he took a tiny 6-second clip of the whole thing. If you've got 20 minutes, you would use loads to get, more and more clips. Took a tiny bit of that and refuses to show the man, refuses to show the interview with the man, because the entire story will crumble. No married man and no married woman will ever come forward because they don't exist. And that's why he won't show it. He would deliberately.
And this is the least of the concerns, honestly. This isn't the thing. Lying and forging credentials and being abusive is the point. That's the thing that we were calling out. This thing that she's talking about was just the smoking gun that put the attention on those other things.
Took just 6 seconds of the 20-minute, because if you listen to the rest of it, it'd be like, nobody wants a man, nobody was interested in you, man. Who are you? I've never heard of you. And go speak to all the other girls he's talking to. He's a single, and by his own admission, he's a single man. And it's just that my tone in that was kind of just cut and made it look like I was talking about a marriage, but what I was really saying, because she had said to me, this is all you do. All you do is this, that, and the other. And I said, excuse me, if I wanted to, I could do birthday, this, that, and the other. But nobody wants your man, and they're not married and not engaged. So I don't know if that makes any sense, because
you were responding to what she was accusing you of.
That's what I was trying to say. This man, and I said, there's another girl, and this girl that he talks to, he messages that girl. Why are you coming at me? I was just confused. It was coming towards me. Now, this girl recorded it in 2021, and she and him have never been in a formal relationship. They only dated for a very brief time. Even when I asked him, do you know anything? He goes, I haven't spoken to him in 5 years. I don't know. We were so brief. I didn't even know that she would even hold on to this. She held on to that for 5 years straight and was waiting for her opportunity to kind of give it to somebody, and out of context. I don't know if she gave the whole voice recording, because if she did, you'd hear all of it. She took that 10 seconds, sent it to him, and then they both kind of, discussed it, and that's how it went everywhere. Now, it's taught me a lot of lessons about that, but the psychoticism of this particular person, that there's two people that are involved, both her and the troll involved, is endless. It's genuinely endless. I didn't even know that people could hold on to that much anger and hate resentment, because bear in mind, I've never spoken to her since or after, and I've never spoken to this man since the day. I haven't spoken to this man in years, and there was no affair, nothing. Nobody was married, nobody was engaged, none of those things. So it's taught me a valuable lesson that one thing I underestimated is I think I have a presence, either online or in person, whatever it is, which I evoke a strong reaction out of people, good or bad. It's a strong, intense reaction. So when people hate me, it's with so much intensity, because what I was most surprised about.
And zero accountability for the things that were going wrong. Zero accountability for how she abused people and disrespected them. Zero accountability about the credentials and the forging of them. Those are the things that matter. And here she is. She did a song and dance to not address that.
Is how much women were jumping on this and doing videos. As women, shouldn't we be discovering this man that's having the affair? Shouldn't we be like, oh my God, he's the one that cheated on the wife? Maybe she didn't know, whatever it is. Shouldn't we go find the man? And even this man that, released it, his whole Instagram is based on exposing fitness people who are, fakes. And this man is a fitness influencer. If he was a married man having an affair, shouldn't we be exposing that person? Now, the way the women...
Deflections, anything but focus on Sadia, right? Never mind the fact that Sadia tells people that they watch animal porn. Never mind the fact that Sadia says that you're like a freaking porn addict, or fill in the blank with whatever else she freaking said, calling people pathetic victims. It couldn't be that though, Sadia, right? That couldn't be that the reason why people didn't like you. Not that. No, anything but the truth. So all this is just word salad, narcissistic word salad.
kind of jumped on it, and they saw the misogyny behind it. They saw that this man is being protected, this apparent married man, which doesn't exist because he's
now it's misogyny. Oh, look at her. The woman that's slightly red-pilled now blaming misogyny when it's convenient. She has no problems being it's misogyny. It's because I'm a woman, pulling all of the tactics out to avoid accountability. It's funny how that works, right? When push comes to shove, they'll pull out the victim card, the Eeyore card.
never been married, but he's being fully protected. But then I'm being like completely blasted on the internet. Wouldn't the woman in you be like, okay, well, first of all, why are the men protecting the men? Why don't we find this man? He's the actual person involved. But it was like a rejoicing of like, yes, she's not perfect. She's this. Yeah. And the thing is, I've never claimed to be any of those things. I've never, ever said I'm a high value woman. I've never said I do this. I'm just saying this is what happens in relationship sense. But because you see me as a high value man, a woman, you think I'm saying that. I've never said that.
Discrediting you definitely serves their narrative more.
Oh, massively.
I will ask though, Sadia, what was your husband's reaction to like hearing the voice recording and like learning about this story?
Luckily, he knew the person involved. He knew the man involved. He knows he's never been married, never been engaged. He's known in Dubai. His online presence is not a possibility. So he knows that it's false. The harder part was seeing how happy that kind of community was to see me being held at the stake. I just think that was the hardest part, to see how many people rejoice at the idea of Sadia Khan being like exposed, and just seeing how many more views people get when they mention me in their thumbnail. I would see girls doing videos on YouTube, their regular views is like 100 200 views, and I come on, it's like thousands and thousands of views.
And what have I said in the past? I made a short about this, if any of you remember. But I'll say the one time narcissistic people won't mind criticism and negative attention is if they can spin it to make themselves feel powerful and superior. And that's just what she did, right? So she called out the women that made videos about her, calling her out, and she noticed the rest of those women's videos, they didn't get as many views as when they talked about Sadia. So Sadia was able to spin that in a way that made her feel powerful and superior. Gave her narcissistic supply. So that's the time they don't mind negative attention. Now, if she wasn't able to do that, then she wouldn't like it. And that's why she hated when Abba and Preach called her out, because there was no way for her to spin it.
So it just shows how much there's an appetite to see people that kind of fall. So I think that was the hard part.
So his initial reaction was to protect you, not, is this true?
Yes, absolutely. And it's hard. Look, here's what I would say. It is super, super hard, both for I think the main thing is my parents. I am a very tough person. I'm a very strong, I can handle pretty much everything. But I think when your parents are being dragged through it and people are, saying things to your parents, anything that affects your parents has a lasting impact. And I think that's what I'm actually suffering with more. I can handle my own in almost every scenario, but I can't handle my parents being affected. And regardless of the scenario, me saying words of that effect, even if somebody said to me, is this what you just suck or whatever? And I said, excuse me, if I wanted to.
And here's the thing. If she just called herself a relationship coach, a lot of my problems with her would have went away, at least at first. I still would have disagreed with what she was saying. But if she just said she was a relationship coach, okay, you can speak, whatever. I'll disagree with you, but you can call yourself a relationship coach. But when you lie and deceive people into thinking you're a psychologist in order to get on the biggest podcast around, now you're deceiving people. Now you're manipulating people. Now you're lying. That's a problem. And it's a problem when the people don't do their due diligence to make sure she's not telling to make sure she's telling the truth. That's my problem.
Me just regurgitating that to another person is not a reflection of how I've been raised. It's not a reflection of how I am. So I think that's what they found the hardest. They just don't recognize this behavior. But I have to say, I have a tongue on me. So I'm one of those people as articulate and I can be when it comes to relationship advice. If you try me, I'll be equally articulate when I'm ratchet. So I'm like, what? So, and I'll go ham in that area as well. So I have this tongue on me and I have this temper on me, which unfortunately can be used against me. So it's something I definitely need to work on. Unfortunately, I haven't. I still have this energy where like, don't try me. Like if you try, like just because I look classy and put together doesn't mean I won't tell you what's going on. And I'm still like that. But it is definitely not something that serves you well in this online environment.
I think that definitely makes a lot of sense. And I'm glad that you have given some thought to like what is true and what is not.
Yeah.
And it seems like most of it's untrue, but
And I can
one thing
always
you do
add
recognize is that your word choice wasn't ideal, but that's something that just a personality trait of you.
This guy's in over his head. He doesn't know what to say. He's young. He probably just has a crush on her, and he's like, "Oh, I want a pretty girl on my podcast." But I mean, he should honestly be above that because he's got millions of followers. There's all sorts of women that should like him. So, like, I don't understand why it had to be her. Why her? You don't need her. What is this for? Like, you just wanted to be a little bit provocative or something? Like what?
Oh, and unfortunately, it really is a personality trait. I think it's something that no matter how calm I get, my habit is I will say something, even if it makes me look bad, to make you feel bad when I'm annoyed. And I have this habit, and I do it even, even in my marriage, it would be like, I don't care what I have to say to get you angry in that moment because you tried to get me angry. And because I don't take words seriously, I'm one of those people who is super insensitive to words. You can pretty much say anything to me and I can handle it. But I know people aren't. I know people are hypersensitive. So I know words are weapons. So what I will do is say a word that I know will evoke a reaction, even if it has zero truth in it, because people don't focus on the truth of the words. They just focus on how it made them feel. So I can even say to somebody, even if they're not fat, I might be like, oh, you fat bitch. Like,
this is a bunch of bullshit right here.
In a fight. And I'm like, she'll get a complex out of that. And I know I shouldn't do that, but it's my way of just hurting the person if they've hurt me. And
so basically, that's her being abusive and admitting, well, someone hurts me, I want to hurt them right back. So I'll call them a fat bitch. Okay. Just the kind of psychologist / relationship coach we've always wanted. Showing her emotional maturity there.
It's a terrible trait to have, but I think most women would be lying if they said that they don't have it, because we all do it. Maybe some people don't, but I shouldn't say we all. But any woman I wouldn't have this presence online. I wouldn't have this confidence online if I was a meek, shy, watch what I say person. I am very assertive. I'm very hyper confident, and it doesn't stop just at work. It kind of is a personality trait, unfortunately. So
I don't think men are used to hearing the way women speak to each other as well.
Yeah.
It's not something they
don't get to.
Oh, shut up, Jack. You're kissing her ass right now. I hate it.
See us talk like that. And when we are at odds with each other, gloves are off. Gloves are, unfortunately. And so, that's the genuine truth of it.
And correct the chat that who said it. Black Sheep said it correctly. Like, if you're going to say you're a therapist / psychologist, and then you're going to get sucked into people like calling you names online, I can't even do that. I would get roasted if I started doing that. And rightfully so, probably, right? But like, if you're going to hold yourself to that standard, you want the privilege that using those words gives you, the status that using those words give you. Well, now you also get the accountability of those words too. So you can't just be running and calling women a fat bitch and telling people they watch animal porn. Like, who the fuck do you think you are? Like, that was just absurd.
If anyone tries to dispute it, we can always bring names of the two people involved and you can verify it in 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'll go for this one. If love isn't enough anymore, what actually keeps two people loyal in 2025?
It's having a real relationship with the truth. And what I mean by that is people who have good relationships with the truth don't feel the need to lie and live a separate life behind their partner's back. And what I mean by that is when you are totally yourself in a relationship, you are totally honest when you're unhappy as well. So if I'm totally myself and I can say, I love my partner, I don't like this, I like this, we can have those confrontations. When I'm not satisfied in any area, I can have that confrontation and move on. But people who are non-confrontational don't want to have those conversations and don't want to be alone. What they will do is, instead of working on the problems, they will just having those confrontational conversations, they will just outsource and live separate lives. So what I would say is one trait, and like I was just describing my terrible trait of being confrontational, where it's handy is in a relationship. If you are confrontational, what will happen is as problems arise, you confront them and resolve them. Non-confrontational people, as problems arise, they either tiptoe around it or don't resolve it, but so then they outsource partners on the side. And I think if you can just become completely yourself and completely honest in your relationship, even if that means you go outsource and you become disloyal, you'll probably say it to your partner and they'll probably agree or something. There will be some honesty. In this day and age, gone are the days where people are totally monogamous. There's polyamory, there's threesomes, there's all of that, this, that, and the other. You avoid disloyalty when you can totally be honest with your partner about what your needs are. And that's where the key to loyalty stands is, you know, that whatever I'm dissatisfied with, I can tell them and we can either find a solution or we can end it. But we don't have to resort to living separate lives.
And then I do.
And that's actually not a bad suggestion. So that's why Sadia is so frustrating, is that some things she'll say I agree with, and then other things she's just completely out of control. And she also has poor character to boot. And so it's one thing if you disagree with her takes, but the other part is the poor character side. That's the other ridiculous thing that just makes it even more annoying.
I want to touch on this because a lot of people feel as though their partner is too confrontational.
Yeah.
What's your framework for deciding when to be confrontational in a relationship?
When it's productive to the outcome of the relationship. So some people are so confrontational, they'll be like, oh my God, you left the ice cream in the wrong tub, and they're just totally confrontational about that. Other people, it's just ask yourself, does this actually affect the quality of the relationship? If she misplaced something, if he's a bit late, these things, try and be flexible. Flexibility will remove the negative impact of confrontation. And what I mean by that is flexible people, what happens is if life changes, things don't go great, things are not ideal, they can be flexible. It's okay. They're not so rigid. It's not like, okay, it's not the end of the world if they've got a stain on their t-shirt. It's not the end of the world if somebody's 10 minutes late. They get on with it. Non-flexible, so inflexible plus confrontational, it's a nice nightmare. Inflexible people, you're a bit late or something goes wrong or something's not ideal. They sweat the small things about everything. And plus they're confrontational about it. Those two combined is when it's too much. So flexibility means that, okay, that's okay, you're a bit late. Okay, it's okay. Okay, you told me you're going to go out and go on a holiday with your friends. No problem. Okay, you didn't answer in time. No problem. It's not the end of the world. But inflexible and confrontational, every inconvenience leads to a fight.
Last one here, Sadia. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received or given?
Okay. Best piece of advice I think I can give based on my experience of working with lots of people is that your self-esteem and self-worth is determined by your decisions and actions. It's not your childhood. It's not your trauma. It's not your partner selection. Because actually the underlying pin behind all of that is the decisions you're making. So you might have a really tough childhood, and I completely understand.
I mean, your partner selection, once you've done the work, will probably reflect how you feel about yourself. Before you've done the work, perhaps not so much.
The reason why it leads to negative self-worth is because then you start doing things that are bad. You might start drinking, you might start abusing, you might start doing things that are bad. Similarly, you might have a really bad relationship that really affected your self-worth, but there was a decision to choose that person and stay with that person longer than you should have. So your self-esteem and self-worth will change the moment you realize that it's not your traumas that are pulling the strings of your relationships, it's your decisions. The moment you start making decisions and choices and doing actions you like, you'll like yourself. The moment you don't is when you hate yourself. Simple.
Ultimately, should we be looking for love or searching for peace?
Always pick peace over pleasure. Pleasure will give you a momentary high. You'll have a great vacation, you'll have great sex, you'll have great intimacy. It comes with a great high. But the only way to achieve happiness in life is when you are content with the lows. The lows are not too deep. So when you have a choice between peace and pleasure, always think, what is peace? And how you know it's a peaceful decision is you ask yourself, is there any chance of there being any shame, guilt, or regret? If there's any shame, guilt, or regret, it's probably a pleasure-driven decision. Avoid it. But if it's no shame, no guilt, no regret, it's a peaceful decision. Select that.
And so, Sadia Khan, when you call people names and lie about your credentials and forge them, is that a peaceful decision that gives you nice self-worth? Or is that a decision that gives you guilt and shame or something else? Or, if you're narcissistic, maybe you were a little too shameless in this case, as Dr. Simon would say. But what do you think, Chet?
Beautiful. Awesome. Well, everyone, this has been your guest, Sadia Khan. This is the Jack Neel podcast. I appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate you.
And let's see if we can find that little thing that Abbott and Preach did.
No way. We can't have a normal convo with
is some kind of coach for online dating, psychologist. She has a bachelor's degree. Some things came out about her.
What are you going to do about it? I'll stop it if you have an attitude, and I can do it today if I want to.
So she's talking to a woman because...
Did you hear that? That's what she said. And then she didn't even go over the other text messages where they went over the sex and having babies together, all sorts of things.
She's fiance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Go on.
I can do it on your wedding day and your birthday.
Okay, well,
and the
we'll
day
see.
after.
Okay.
I've been in situations where he's been with you in a social setting. He'll call me after.
This is the biggest scandal that's...
And he'll call me after. Does that sound like someone who's talking in a hypothetical? Or does that sound like somebody that actually did meet up with this guy? I'll let you decide.
Sadia Khan doesn't want you to know about her. She preaches on her page and on her content that she's a high-value woman. She can teach you how to attract a high-value woman if you're a man for thousands of dollars for one-on-one coaching. Let's see how much she values herself as a woman.
The main thing I would say to be a high-value woman is always you have ability to reject attention.
And here she is saying high-value woman as if she doesn't consider herself one. And here are her text messages, babe. When can I have sex? You're so long. I need a substitute. Oh, wait, it's mainly me. You just happen to be there. Oh.
Babe, when can I have sex with you? You're so long. I need a substitute. Oh, wait, it's mainly me. You just happen to be there.
The third step towards becoming a high-value woman, and this is genuinely so important, it's self-awareness. Now,
You're open to choose any man known in Dubai, period. Who else has a side chick on this level? Gives them no stress. Told you I'm such a side chick.
no.
Huh. Is this how she framed it with Jack Neel there? Absolutely not.
No way. We can't have a normal convo without you talking about hoes, relationship, marriage, cheating, murder. Heal, man.
And then she says, welcome to Sadia. Hey, I appreciate that.
That's crazy.
only one thing that all women want.
And just to marinate, all right, won't be long, get excited. Just FYI, I'm not taking any more 11 p.m. school night appointments. I still haven't caught up on the missed sleep. You had fun, though. You don't know I might have hated it. I'll leave my car running next time, so point switching it off.
What are you going to do about it? I'll suck his dick if you have an attitude, and I can do it today if I want to.
I'm not gonna lie. Well, the first line she said was pretty hot. I'm not gonna, I got a semi-check. I've seen this girl's videos before.
I haven't.
She charges like 8,000 USD for a 1 hour video call with her. Yeah, that much. So she does a lot of coaching. I actually looked up her website. Video call with Sadia, high value man program, online courses. Masculinity mastering. So she tells men how to be men. She got a high value man course.
Cool.
And she unwifed. She like a permanent side chick. She likes that shit apparently.
Jesus Christ, my God.
You want to know one of the funny parts too? She tells women not to be attention seeking, to value themselves, to treat themselves well, to not, look for like cheap attention online.
And then that's what she does.
No, there's like one that's
Yep. So Sadia Khan says, don't seek attention. And then everywhere you go, Sadia Khan gets attention. Do as she says, not as she does. Rules for thee, not for me. Double standards, hypocrisy. That's the name of the game for Sadia Khan. And there's more. We can go over the fake credentials. They go over that in the next video too. But I already went over that too in a previous video. Sadia Khan artist is a great way to put it, Mac. It's in the name. So I guess she's on the image rehabilitation tour now. That was a month ago that Jack did that. It just got brought to my attention today. Because I saw somebody I know follows Jack. And I explored him. I was like, who is this person that has all these followers and interviewing all these popular people? And then I noticed one of the popular people was Sadia. I was like, oh, I couldn't have been more disappointed. But there they are. There they are. What a disappointment. Kind of. Very, very slightly. So in the Abba and Preach one, what she did was like, when she talks about, they confronted her about how she talks to people, and she just said, well, I have a bad temper and blah, blah, blah. But she just couldn't say, you know what? It was unacceptable. Unacceptable, leave it at that. She said something, and then she went straight to, well, I'm a woman, and people are coming at me because I'm a woman. People are coming at me because I'm a minority. It's like, no, not really. They're coming at you because you're out of control. That's why. So she's slipping and sliding through the accountability, doing what I expect. But this is where these other people are enabling it. I'm just as mad at that dude Jack now. Because here she is, still in the spotlight. Why? The only power you have over people on social media is to remove your attention. Any attention, even if it's hate attention, helps them. So I can't give Sadia any hate attention on Instagram because she blocked me. So yes, her character's weak. No humility by her. I mean, and Jack there, he's kind of helping her on her rehabilitation tour. I don't think it's right. Because they didn't address the most important parts. Very disappointing. What are we to do? She'll probably start calling you names. And maybe she won't do that now. Maybe she's learned her lesson. Only because she doesn't want to be called out again, perhaps. But all right. It's about time to wrap it up over here. Got to figure out the next video to go over soon. Maybe Duncan Trussell and his mother. Or I'll figure out something. Well, she kind of already has. She kind of already has come back from it. Like she should have been toast. And there Jack is with millions of followers helping her appear credible again. Why? Again, these popular creators, they have a responsibility. You shouldn't be platforming people that have proven to be frauds, because unless you're calling them out and giving them a tough time, then you're just enabling it at that point. Yeah, I mean, Dr. Romney would never be able to swing that. Like it would blow up in her face instantly. Because there's more standards for the narcissistic abuse space. I mean, people would instantly turn on Dr. Romney. But Dr. Romney wouldn't do that. Right? Like, regardless of what anyone thinks about Dr. Romney, her character isn't that bad, right? She's not going to do that. Of course, Ellie. So Mac, Ellie, Michelle, Kat, Crazy Christy, and everyone else. Till next time. But it was always a pleasure spending the evening with the flock of black sheep. Couldn't have had a better way to spend it. I've been starting them around 10. I should probably start them a little bit earlier, but as you all can tell, I'm a bit of a night owl anyway. I've tried afternoons before, but sometimes they're not as good with the viewership. But maybe earlier in the evenings, because you would all never believe what time it is in Catland. 5:53 or 6:53 a.m., right? But all right. Over and out, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for the support. I love it, Ellie.